Kind of know what. If you're a beginner to game dev,
social media and even in like my comment section, people going, oh, the gaming crash is coming, oh, the prices are raising so much that it's going to cause the entire market and the entire industry to collapse. But I think that that's pretty narrow minded, because we can look at like individual instances of the bad but ignore all of the good and come up with the conclusion that everything is falling apart. And you can do that in every sector of life. I mean, let's be honest, it's like a very common thing. We all have those like uncles or like, you know, grandpa who's every 6 months like, well, you know, the world's about to end and you got to start stocking up on food because when stuff goes down, it's going to be really bad. And every 6 months, the world is about to end. You know, it's because they only focus on the bad. They don't look at the good that's also always there. And in the case of the gaming industry as well, I think it's really easy to just focus on the negatives, but then lose sight of the positives. You know, this little bitty thread from Synth Potato, or not thread, this post, I think is a really good summation of some of the good that we've seen that is often ignored. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 sold 2 to 3 million copies very, very quickly, and it also was a discounted title, not a AAA like $70 game. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is already over 1 million copies sold, and it apparently is outpacing sales of Oblivion Remake already. It's starting to pick up steam, so it actually could find itself, you know, climbing the 2-3 million unit threshold. Not to mention, you know, the revenue generated from Game Pass and other such sources. Schedule 1, roughly 5 million copies sold as well. Split Fiction, roughly 2 million copies sold. Gaming isn't dead, gaming is thriving, and smaller studios are leading the charge for 2025. And I think that this is the big thing, okay? Is there a gaming crash? For the industry, no. Is there a gaming crash happening for the big, gigantic, like quadruple A studios? Kinda, because we're seeing games like KCD2, which is developed by a fairly small team and is put together for like 50 million US dollars. I think it was like 47 million US dollars when converted. Very cheap. And it made profitability its first day. Like games like Alan Wake 2 take years to reach profitability. I think Alan Wake 2 just was like it broke even like 3 months ago. It took that long. But that's the reality for a lot of these big studios, is that these games are so freaking expensive to make. It takes years and years and years to get there. But then a game like KCD2 comes along and is profitable in the first day. What? Same with Clair Obscur. Made by roughly 32 people plus a dog that stays at the studio. And yes, they used contract workers. Every studio does, including like, you know, Warhorse, who did KCD2. They used contract work, but like, you know, if I if I'm working on a YouTube video and I decided to use like a little bit of background music or something, am I going to put into the credits for making that video like the company, all the legal team, the marketing people that worked on the royalty-free music, that did all that? Like, no, you're going to say, I made the video. You're not going to say, well, me and then the 35 people that work at this company worked on it. Like, this is not how people use words. But, you know, I guess if we want to be pedantic, we can be pedantic. But the core dev team was roughly 30 people on Clair Obscur. It's absolutely wild. And yet it's turning a crazy profit. And this is the thing to remember, okay? When you get to like the big scale where you're putting 300, 400, 500 devs, core devs on a game, and then you have thousands of people supporting the game as well, and the budget balloons to $200, $300, $400 million. You can spend a year working your butt off to make a profit. And it might take a year, might take 2, might take 3, but eventually you might turn a profit and you might, you know, make $50 million on the back end or $100 million on the back end. But that's solid, that's good. But you compare that to what like an Expedition 33 is able to do, where they have a very small team of 30-ish people that put this game together in about 5 years. And it wasn't 30 people for that entirety of the 5 years. I mean, it was like 5 people, and then it went to 10, then it went to 15. So it kind of revved up as time went by. But this game was pennies to make compared to some of these big games like an AC Shadows or like, you know, a Forspoken or a Concord. This game cost close to nothing, and its profitability is way higher. I mean, the margin is crazy high on games like KCD2 and games like Clair Obscur, where they're just printing money because the dev costs were smaller, the scope was tighter, and it was a concept that the dev team was excited about, and they were able to put out a game that people really connected with. And I think that this is perhaps one of the more interesting things about the current state of the industry is gamers have largely rejected the big budget blockbuster titles as they stand by themselves. Like, big budget games can still do really well. I mean, of course, GTA 6 will do really well. AC Shadows has done solidly despite costing hundreds of millions of dollars. There's, you know, Monster Hunter cost hundreds of millions and that did really well. You know, there's plenty of examples of big budget games that do well. But on like the independent third-party publisher side, the games like a Forspoken that are from, you know, a new team that cost a ton of money, those games, you can't just throw money at them and find success anymore. You have to be much more intentional with where you allocate capital and why and when. And that's just something that you can't get away from it now. It used to be back in like the early 2010s, if you just spend $200 million, $300 million, $400 million, not that you ever would back then AAA was like 50 million. But if you spent AAA money on your game, you would typically get AAA reception because you could crank the graphics, you could crank the fidelity, you could get better voice actors, you could do all sorts of stuff like that that would help like your game stand out. But nowadays with graphics being much less of a deciding factor for people, like Unreal Engine can make any game look really good in screenshots and stuff. Now it's much more about the game itself. And I think word of mouth is the other, perhaps most important thing. You know, old school, more traditional games media has kind of started to accelerate in its death. You know, just yesterday, as of when I'm recording this, Polygon was like bought out, and or I think it was a couple days ago, but they were bought out, faced major layoffs. We also saw what is the other one, Giant Bomb. They also got like bought and restructured and everything. A bunch of people left there, but it's because like those outlets were not generating the kind of views and revenue that you would hope to see, you know, for a profitable company. And it's because in large part people are moving away from those outlets and coming to places like this. They're coming to streamers, to YouTubers, to individuals instead of like big companies. And I think to a certain extent it's also happening in what games they choose to play, where they're going to smaller teams that are not big corporate soulless machines. They're going to places that still have soul and authenticity. But also it's in large part it's just a reflection of people's frustration with the status quo. They want something different, they want something fresh, a different perspective. But I think more than anything they want authenticity, and I think smaller teams are able to provide that without like this stereotypical game design by committee where you can tell that they had some executive go in and rewrite 15 different things because he didn't think this made sense or that made sense. People just want an authentic experience, and they are getting that with like YouTubers and streamers that they can get to know better. They can pop into streams and hang out with them, and then those streamers can also then recommend games that they love. And it's that authentic experience that you're just not getting on the corporate side, the AAA side, at least not commonly, but you can get it with smaller teams. And so people are being much more selective with their money. And I think that that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to see people being very precise and intentional. And I think that that's the bigger impact that these price hikes on like $80 games will have, the consoles being more expensive and stuff like that. I think it's going to just push people into being more selective. And that means that the like 7-8 out of 10 games probably don't do as well. Those games probably flop much harder. It used to be that like the AA game or the 8 out of 10 game, there was a place for it in the industry. As prices rise, there's not as many spots for people and games like that. It just doesn't really make sense anymore, because why am I going to spend $70 or $80 on a good game when I can save up and buy a phenomenal game? You know, people are going to be much more intentional with where they throw their money. And I think that means that those 7 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s are going to start to really die out quickly, which, you know, long lasting impact, I think could be the problem. And it would be where I would be worried, is just that a lot of these games like a KCD, the first game really solid, but like plenty of issues. And then the second game is kind of the perfection of that formula. But they were able to perfect the formula because they had the chance to make the second game. They didn't have to shut their doors. They didn't have to move on because the first game wasn't that profitable, because they did still generate a good amount of revenue, even though the first game wasn't phenomenal. You know, same with like the Outer Worlds 1. Hopefully the Outer Worlds 2 is also really good, or way better than the first game. But the first game had plenty of problems, but they were given the opportunity to make the second. So I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how all of this plays out. I think the odds are we don't get a lot of brand new IP. I think you'll see a lot more safe bets from like the bigger publishers. And you're already seeing that. Like I just filmed a little segment on Assassin's Creed. They have 9 games scheduled for the next 6 years. And it's because that's considered a safe bet. I mean, Assassin's Creed's a big franchise. Put your eggs in that basket and you should be okay. Trying new IP, trying wacky stuff, it's too risky now. People are going to be really careful with their money, unless you're a team small enough that you can take those risks. And I think that's the big thing, is that you're not going to see a lot of risks taken on the AAA side, but on the AA side, on the indie side, you'll see plenty of risks taken because they can still afford it, and players are actively choosing to support those smaller studios and those smaller teams more, which I think is good. I think that's phenomenal, because you got to remember, every Ubisoft, Rockstar, every Bethesda Game Studios, every Arcane, all of those studios started as very tiny teams that were working on smaller projects, and then they built up and grew into these monster massive developers. But they started small. And that's healthy for the industry to kind of recycle, and for some to grow and then wilt and grow and then die and get recycled back into the earth of the games industry. And I think that's going to happen with some of these big AAA games is that you're going to see big studios kind of shutting down or downsizing. I mean, even Bungie right now, Bungie was previously at like 1,600 employees. They're down in the low 800s right now, which is wild, but that's just what happens. You know, eventually the studio grows too big and needs to either reform or die. And that's kind of what's happening there. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years, you know, you see the devs behind KCD, Claire Obscure, Schedule 1, Split Fiction, you see more money getting thrown at them. They grow, they get bigger and crazier, because this is just what happens in the industry. Is it evolves, it changes, it shifts. Some devs come and go, but that's what happens. And I think that's healthy, and we should reward the outliers. We should reward the ones that are really special and successful by buying their stuff, because again, money talks. That's the only thing that really gets it through anybody's head at the end of the day at these big companies, is voting with your wallet. So if you like games like Split Fiction, if you like games like Schedule 1, Claire Obscure, KCD2, vote with your wallet, buy the game, support it however you can, and you'll get more games like that. And if you don't like what another company is doing, don't buy the game. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's, I guess, needs being said. But either way, I just wanted to talk about this because I've seen plenty of people, you know, alluding to gaming being dead, or the price hikes are going to kill the industry. I think they'll have an impact, certainly, but I don't think the games industry is dead. I think a chunk of it is. And I just happen to think that the chunk of the industry that's dying is the chunk that needed to die. It's the soulless, massive corpo, quadruple A, open world, mixed in with live service game. Those, I will not really shed a tear, and I think the industry is healthier for it. And I think that this is just part of the natural process of the industry kind of self-regulating and adjusting and shifting. I think it's good for the industry. And I think, you know, if we saw games like KCD, Claire Obscure, Schedule 1, or Split Fiction, or other such games, like even a Pal World or something, if we saw those failing and flopping, then I'd be worried. Then I'd be really, really worried. But players are buying games. They are rewarding games that they connect with. They just have to connect with them. And they have to connect with them. They do connect with them when they're good games, not just when they're expensive games, which I think is the clear distinction that some of these companies have had to learn the hard way. Just because they spent a lot of money on developing the game does not mean that I will feel it's worth a lot of money to buy. But that's just me. He took my thing.
I buy If you're a beginner to game dev, I by and large think that you shouldn't worry too much about which software to pick. Should you use Unity or Godot? It doesn't really matter. Should you use Krita or Procreate when making your game art? It doesn't really matter. Now, if you want to do 3D, you probably shouldn't use GameMaker. If you want to do 2D art, you probably wouldn't pick Blender. I will get into those caveats later. I want to get into why I don't think your software matters that much. So here's the thing. Any person who has sunk more than 1,000 hours into game dev would probably have a really good argument for why their engine is the best.
Unity is more mature than Godot. If you want to port your game to console,
But guess what? Most of this stuff is completely irrelevant to you as a beginner. You know what actually should matter to you as a beginner? That you have fun enough so that you don't quit 2 weeks from now. You shouldn't concern yourselves with runtime fees or console ports. You should be concerned about enjoying yourself until you learn what you like and dislike. You should be concerned with getting far enough into the hobby to actually care about which engine is the best. Now, if I tell you that Godot's node system is terrible, am I telling you the truth? Do I have a good reasoning behind it? Well, if you're a beginner, you actually have no idea. So not only should you worry more about getting into the hobby rather than anything else, 80% of the time you can't even evaluate whether someone is giving you good or bad advice. The thing is, even the people that do give you advice often have a huge bias. A person who grew up programming with Java would probably hate the fact that Python isn't statically typed, whereas a person who grew up with Python might feel that having everything be in a class the way it is in Java is kind of annoying. Now, if you are a programmer, you might feel really strongly about all of this stuff, and you might even have a good argument. At the same time, I kind of feel like most of the time, people like the stuff they like, either because they're familiar with it or because it fits the work they do. Now, there will be cases where even you as a beginner can evaluate what you want. If you really want your engine to be open source, then pick open source. If every single person says that Unreal has a steep learning curve, and you hate learning things and have never programmed before, then yeah, maybe don't start with Unreal Engine. But by and large, I don't think this choice matters as much as you think it does. I started with Unity, used it for a while, then switched. Switching between Unity and Godot was not remotely as difficult as it was getting into Unity to begin with. An engine is an engine, and if you know one engine, you kind of know what you need to know in order to pick up another engine. And this principle does kind of extend to your drawing software as well. The difference between good art and bad art is being able to draw. So if you're completely new to drawing, your drawing software won't suddenly make your art amazing. All popular drawing software, from GIMP to Krita to Photoshop, they all have the necessary features to make great art. The only one that doesn't is Microsoft Paint. The biggest differences between these softwares are how well they are set up for certain workflows, which you can only really appreciate if you actually have a workflow to begin with. If you don't have a workflow, it's all going to feel kind of terrible, regardless of which software you use. If I draw game art on the computer, I prefer Krita, because I got used to Photoshop's workflow as a kid, and Krita essentially functioned the same but for free. When I draw on the iPad, which is most of the time, I use Procreate, largely because I like how it doesn't get in the way of drawing. But when I make the thumbnails for my videos, well, then I don't like working in Procreate because it sucks for handling text and layer effects. So for thumbnails, I use Affinity Photo, which has this really nice side tab so that you can deal with fonts and adjustments very easily. But you see, these are rather small distinctions that essentially boils down to me having dealt with drawing programs for such a long time that I actually care about these small nuances. I care about what I think each program does best. I've been drawing for so long that I have developed a taste for how I think the UI should look and function. And for some of my preferences, like my preference for Krita's UI, it's essentially just that I like it because it's familiar to me. But if you're starting out, you have no understanding of what you want, and you have no preferred workflow. You aren't familiar with any software, you have no starting point. So picking the correct choice becomes kind of tricky. You don't know what you want. But did you notice something about what I've just said? You're sitting there afraid of making the wrong choice. As if just because you start with one software, you have to use that software in perpetuity. But I just listed a bunch of software I've used. I played around with plenty of drawing software. I've switched engine. Inevitably, if you do stick around with game dev, you will try things. I'm not sure picking one thing and sticking with it forever is a goal you should necessarily have. It's a weird goal to have. And the more you get into this stuff, the easier it will be to migrate to another software. Now, there can obviously be some issues when you switch engine or software, but there doesn't have to be. I personally found that I had an easier time doing stuff in Godot 2 days after starting with it, even though I had worked with Unity for more than a year. To be fair, my favorite programming languages are Python and MATLAB, but my point is just that switching is something that you shouldn't be afraid of. Making the wrong choice is not something you should be afraid of. Not starting is something to be afraid of. So just pick what feels best and get started. With that said, or rather because of what I've just said, you should remove hurdles that make you not start. If you want to draw on the computer, but you don't have any money, start with Krita. Don't start with Photoshop. If you have a terrible computer that can't run Unity, then start with Godot. Just start. And I'm not saying this because I don't think you can make the wrong choice. I picked up Unity because it was what most people recommended at the time. It didn't quite fit me, but even if it was the wrong choice for me, I still don't regret starting with it. So when I wanted to try pixel art, guess what? I just picked Sprite. It's popular and recommended. It's probably popular and recommended for a reason. Once again, I don't regret it. When I eventually play around with vector art, which I will do, I'll probably go for Affinity Designer, because I got it in a bundle, so I already own it. If I didn't have Affinity Designer, I'd go for Inkscape. Once again, it's free and fairly popular, so I might as well start there. I'd rather jump in and make the wrong choice than not having jumped in at all. Thanks for watching. Bye.
We've had a tragedy happen. There has been a death. Recently, a new gaming publication, an old gaming publication actually, has died, and we have killed it.
You know, we've been following the decline of games media on this channel for over a year now, and it's because I find it absolutely fascinating. Because from my perspective, these guys have all the tools at their disposal to be as successful as possible. Far more successful than I could ever be, but they don't wield it with any real conviction. In most cases, it's wielded with ego more than anything else.
Yeah, they're just
They have the access, they have the experience.
The thing is that whenever you have a person that has access to tools and then they don't, like if you watch a monkey, you ever seen a monkey try to use a hammer and nails? It can't figure it out. But you know why? Because it's a fucking monkey. It's stupid. Yeah. That's it.
They have the pipelines, the platform. They used to have the audience, but they don't have that anymore. The reader, the gamer, the people that they need to be able to have a job in the first place, they became insignificant to them. Or an enemy in some cases. And when you turn your back on the people that keep you employed, well, you find yourself unemployed.
What a surprise.
Odd how that works.
Wow.
Polygon is the latest to fall, and I think they're emblematic because in a lot of cases, they represent the meme of the journalists that hate the gamers. Well, not
when
all of them.
Kotaku dies, gamers will have won. The moment that Kotaku shuts down, that will be the total gamer victory.
Just the ones that they disagree with, which just so happens to be the vast majority of them, which doesn't work out very well.
Celebration stream? Yes,
but,
it will be.
You know, talented writers know how to cross that bridge.
Maybe that day I'll be going through the job application process to work at Burger King.
They know that you can still communicate and find ways to communicate with an audience that you disagree with. But Polygon is the best example of what happens when you turn your back on them entirely or you take up arms against them. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about the fall of Polygon. I want to talk about the continued death throes of legacy media. But I still think written media has value.
Written media has more value than any other kind of media in terms of transmitting information. The problem of why written media is dying, there's two problems. Number one, written media has been co-opted by people with biases, and those biases are so overt and so badly hidden that it just basically alienates anybody reading it because they realize that they're reading bullshit. So that's number one. And number two, people are becoming less verbal and less proficient in reading. So people are getting dumber and the articles are getting dumber. And you put those two together and you don't have a lot of people reading.
Diversity of opinions and platforms is necessary. But that would require for games media to be relatable and to start delivering value. And I don't see that happening. Polygon has been sold off to Valnet. Most of its staff has been laid off. Only a few senior staff remain. May their Doom 2016 gameplay video live on as a testament to their contributions to this industry. While it may come as a shock to some, it shouldn't, especially given how severe the layoffs have been across gaming media. Anyone who's been paying attention could have seen this coming. The entire writing staff announced their exits on Blue Sky, which tells you everything that you need.
That's right.
Need to know. And in the eyes of many gamers, this wasn't a tragedy. It's
because Blue Sky actually isn't popular, and them leaving Twitter to go to Blue Sky is them shooting themselves in the foot. Nobody's going to go over and follow you on Blue Sky and read you on Blue Sky. All you want is a safe space for other people that agree with you, but there's no organic viewership or growth there at all.
Long overdue correction. I'm just going to say it.
For any non-Americans, Blue Sky is the it's the mental health center for people who can't cope with Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Nobody reads gaming articles like they used to. I've documented this decline before, but it's worth reiterating just how far these platforms have fallen. Legacy sites like IGN, Kotaku, PC Gamer, GameSpot.
Oh no, he's not bringing out the graphs. Oh, jeez, he's using the graphs? Why you have to do this to him, man? You had to bring out the graphs on him? Oh, shit.
Polygon, all of them started their descent around 2014. And they had a steep decline after 2018 that they never bounced back from. In the eyes of the players, these sites have stopped being informative. They've stopped being relatable. They started pushing
2014 is when Gamergate happened, by the way. Gamergate is what started all of this and killed them. They just didn't realize it until years later.
Parroting PR talking points and outright alienating the very people who once supported them. Most articles now feel like sanitized marketing or worse, ideological messaging wrapped in clickbait headlines. And year after year, we've watched as these sites have consolidated, laid off, or pivoted to something completely irrelevant in a desperate attempt to stay relevant.
Well, they just can't make any money because people aren't going to the website. And this is, so the real problem, and this is like a really good example of this, is that, so do you remember this tweet that this girl, so she got fired from Kotaku, ironically, or unironically. is that she made a tweet talking about like me, because I was discussing live streaming and like why I thought that it was less important for a new content creator to live stream, and she's like talking about like right-wing extremism, and it's like when all you are is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And the issue is that these people are so one note and one dimensional that they don't have any real intelligence to be able to evaluate things in a way that makes sense. So the problem isn't even entirely the ideology. It's that the ideology is being used by people that can't really communicate very well, don't understand ideas, and can't conceptualize anything beyond their one-dimensional understanding of the world. That's the issue, and that's the real reason why these people are losing their jobs. It's because they can't write articles that are good and interesting because they're dumb. That's the problem. It's literally that simple.
No other outlet better represents that downfall than Polygon. When Polygon launched in 2012, it was ambitious. They wanted to be more than just a review site. They wanted to set a standard, uncensored opinions, long-form journalism, video documentaries, cultural think pieces, and for a while, it worked. Their earlier reviews were sharp, polished, and well-written. They gave you far more than you asked for, but you read it anyway because it was damn good content. In a lot of ways, some of their earlier
good writing, like that's the reason why, is that most writers nowadays, people don't realize that writing is a form of leisure for a lot of people, and reading is a form of leisure. And so many people who are writers don't understand how to write with any degree of brevity or wit or like anything other than transmitting information in a very boring way. And the ones that do it in a self-indulgent way, where like they're trying to make these like metaphorical references to something that they learned about in AP English in 12th grade. And it's like, haha, this is so clever because we're a theater kid. They're just not good writers at the end of the day.
Reflects what we see in video reviews and commentary today. Introspective takes on how playing a game makes you feel, what it reminds you of, what you wished other studios could learn from. And they had a solid pulse on what concerned players the most, but then there was a cultural shift, and Polygon just didn't shift with it. Instead, they veered off a cliff. The turning point came with Gamergate 2014, a controversial flashpoint in the industry that changed the tone of games media pretty much across the board.
Well, it changed the tone of games in general. I think that almost all of the problems with video games now, in terms of like any of these social messaging issues, can be tied back to Gamergate. I think that is, it is unironically the original sin.
Outlets were a little bit more cautious. Polygon went all in, leaning into this activist, adjacent, socially progressive lens that they began to frame every game through identity politics. Suddenly,
Gamergate, for anybody who doesn't know, it was like 2014. This like girl got exposed for having a sexual relationship with a person who wrote a review for her game. And then it was kind of like a watershed moment where, or straw broke the camel's back, where as soon as this one thing came out, there were a lot of other instances of journalistic behaviors that were unethical, right? Like, and also like, by the way, it's okay to write a review of somebody's game, but you have to disclose that you're in a relationship with that person, right? I mean, I think that would be logical. And honest, thanks for 10 subs. I appreciate that. And so, yeah, games Risk of Rain too. And so that's really what it is. And so unethical quid pro quos. Yeah, exactly. Like, so like Total Biscuit gave an example of this, is that like somebody sent him a video game to review, and they sent him an Xbox to review the game on, to play the game on. And then they said, well, you can just keep the Xbox after you get done reviewing the game. Well, if you do that, you're obviously giving somebody consideration. And when you give somebody consideration, there's a reason for that. It's because you want something back. And I think that type of quid pro quo, you know, like, and it's this for that, which is like Latin, basically. It's like saying, like, we're going to do one thing for you, and then you're going to give us this back. That's what that term means. And so that term and like that prevalence caused gamers to feel like all of the media and the things that they were receiving were completely inauthentic and wrong. And that criticism was shifted to being that like, oh, well, because it's with a woman that you're not mad about this thing. You're mad because it was a woman. And so it got shifted from being a concern. And by the way, I'm sure there was a degree of like negativity towards women, just like there always is. But it was maligned as that. And you see kind of what I'm saying about how this happened? Yeah, it was framed in a way that made it like misogynist, as like gamers are bad, etc. And that's what I think radicalized a lot of gamers against games media. And that's why so many gamers have been celebrating the failures of games media, is because games media participated in this unethical behavior and also this complete mischaracterization of people that play their games in general.
The reviews weren't about what a game did well. They were about what it failed to represent. And I think their review of Bayonetta 2 is probably the best example of this. A mechanically brilliant action game, well loved and reviewed across the board. And they knocked it down to a 7.5 out of 10 because the reviewer didn't like how sexy the main character was. Not because
it left me asking how many different ways Platinum could find to run a camera between Bayonetta's legs. What's funny to me about this is that you think that's a problem. That's why people play the game.
The gameplay, not because of the performance, because of problematic sexualization.
It's sexist, gross pandering. It's totally unnecessary. I disagree. I like it. And I think this is the problem, is that back then a lot of gamers tried to make it out like, oh, it's art or it's whatever. And I think what's really kind of caused a lot of these people to lose relevance is just the accepting of, yeah, I know it's completely sexist and it's total gooner content and that's what we want. Give it to us right now. And I think really what proved that to be true is gacha games. Every gacha game, look at any subreddit and it's all fan art of the female characters making out with each other. That's just how it is. Telling people what to do. Yeah, exactly. We're now okay with saying we like boobs. Yeah, but you remember, right? Look at the creator of Bayonetta. I know that there's plenty of women that are okay with displaying sexuality. But what my point is that I think that a lot of men felt insecure about doing it. And I think now that it's more socially acceptable to do that, guys are more than willing to say, like, yeah, that's exactly what we want, so give it to us. And I think that's one of the other big reasons why now I think these people are losing the narrative war.
This is the kind of scoring that doesn't just confuse people, it infuriates them. Polygon wasn't just judging the game, they were judging the player. While not saying it overtly, they were saying that this is the kind of content that shouldn't exist, and you shouldn't be okay with liking it. Then came their review of
telling people what to do.
Come Deliverance, where they called the game woefully bland and claimed that women in the game seem to only have 3 functions. They either perform as 2-dimensional sex objects, fetch water from a river, or do needlepoint. Ignoring.
I've got bad news for you about the 1400s in Europe. I've got really bad news. And they're not gonna like it.
The setting, 15th century Bohemia, ignoring Teresa, the woman that saves your life, protects you, and then shares one of the most emotionally grounded relationships that are in the game, ignoring the historical context entirely because it didn't fit the narrative that they wanted to push.
Exactly.
A game that prided itself on historical accuracy needed to bend itself to popular media trends and revisionism instead of just letting it exist as a contrast to how far we've come as people and as a civilization. I don't think these outlets or these writers understand the kind of damage that this approach does. Not only does it do damage to their own credibility, but it does it to the games themselves. Contrast matters. Games that are exploring historical themes or history itself should be able to present that.
Well, it looks like bullshit. Like when I'm playing a historical game and then they have a bunch of female like warriors, I'm like, okay, this is one of those bullshit weird games. Because everybody knows that didn't happen. Like, and then also like, oh, but there's like Joan of Arc or like 3 other examples. Exactly. That's the point. Yeah, anytime I see that kind of stuff, I immediately am like, oh, okay, it's one of these games.
That world as it was, not as they wish it would have been. But rather than allow creative talent to stand on its own, the media often demands ideological conformity. filtering everything through modern social commentary. And when the game doesn't comply, they wield their platforms like weapons, shaming these developers, poisoning discourse, and trying to turn the audiences against them.
He's completely right about this. He is 300% right about this. Is that they weaponize their platform. And the thing is that, and this is the reason why I do the same thing now. Because like these people are never going to stop doing this. So the only way to fight back against this is to do it back to them. And by the way, there's a lot more of us than there are of them. As you can see by the fact that my channel's doing really well and they're laying people off. Keep going? Oh, I will. I will keep going until it's done.
Final Fantasy 16 went through the exact same thing. Square Enix wanted to tell a grounded Northern European-inspired fantasy story. But when the director explained...
There's no black people in the story. I forgot all about this. Oh, my God.
That excessive diversity would conflict with the game's lore and tone, he was met with headlines like, Final Fantasy 16 dev has a terrible answer for why the game is so white, or Final Fantasy 16 has no business abiding by historical realism.
No, actually, you're wrong. Nope.
This wasn't coverage. It was a correction. A demand
this is not journalism. This is activism.
Even fiction needs to submit to ideological vetting. I think that these developers should have the freedom to create without being publicly shamed for not fulfilling someone else's social agenda. Not every game has to represent everyone, and not every creative decision is a political statement.
That's right.
To be fair...
And these people have no problem saying that when a game like South of Midnight comes out. They have no problem saying, like, well, this game isn't made for you. Okay, fine. Well, what about when a game's not made for you? Okay, well, that has to change.
I can already hear the counter-argument that players have mounted pressure campaigns to pushing back against what they view as forced representation or initiatives that they don't agree with, but there is a difference between market feedback and institutional pressure. One affects sales, the other shapes perception. The media controls how these games are framed and who sees them. When they start pushing...
exactly. Like, they push the narratives and they try to force these things into video games, and they create a chilling effect inside of game development, where if games don't capitulate to their behavior, they will write stories and tell lies about these video games in order to make them look bad. And that's why now, for video games that do play into these narratives, and they do actually listen to these journalists... It's like, the siren song of Odysseus, right? It's like, if you want to sail your ship onto the rocks, that's fine. And guess what we are? We're the rocks. We'll destroy the ship. And it's worked. And that's why so many of these video games have died. It's because there's been so much pushback from it. And now these companies are afraid of doing it. Get wrecked? Yeah, get wrecked. There's blood in the water now? Yeah, exactly. And you can, by the way, if enough people are negative about a game, you can absolutely kill the game. Don't ever believe that you can't do it. You can. Believe in yourself.
Ideology over insight, it stops being criticism and it starts becoming coercion. What the media never seems to be able to grasp is that this outrage cuts both ways. When they pressure studios to mold games into ideological statements, it creates a backlash, not just against that game, but the very idea that these games need to carry a message. Assassin's Creed Shadows, South of Midnight, Concord, they didn't draw fire in a vacuum. The media helped build the environment where these players now push back. You kept shaping the discourse. Don't be surprised when discourse shapes you right back. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I mean, this is the reason why Polygon and many of these other media outlets have lost their relevance over time, and it's because in the eyes of players, they've become an oppositional force.
It's because they're wrong. That's the reason why. It's because their viewpoints and their way of seeing the world is simply wrong. People don't have a problem with politics in video games. People have a problem with the mentally ill, SSRI addicted, upper middle class, white woman, progressive American politics. That's what people don't want to hear. Nobody has a problem with Metal Gear Solid's politics. People do have a problem with politics like Concord. That's the big difference.
That is using their platforms to pressure studios to make changes.
Yeah, it's not that we don't want politics. We don't want your politics.
Players before themselves. And that's all been proven with recent statements made by Daniel Varva, the creator of Kingdom Come Deliverance. In a recent Czech interview, Kingdom Come creator Daniel Varva opened up about the impact Polygon and others had on him after the first game. He said that it felt like there was
Daniel Varva was the guy that was the creative director. I don't know. Sorry, sometimes I go AFK, but he was the creative director for Kingdom Come Deliverance, and he got a ton of hate back when the game originally came out because the game didn't adhere to certain social norms.
Sword of Damocles hanging over his head. And he admitted he was very afraid that journalists would pull what they did with the first game on him.
This, by the way, is a metaphor for like a Greek story where there's like a sword hanging over a guy's head with like a fine thread on it. And it like it's the idea of like you being on edge, that you're going to be cut anytime. So
Again, might not know complaining that the sequel wasn't very diverse and blah, 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 to quote him directly. He talks about how he was afraid that they would scour his Facebook, auto-translate his political rants, and write up that he's now a Trumpist right-winger and against this and that. He talks about how that felt like a threat to him and how he was prepared to get fired over it. That is the legacy of Polygon, not just irrelevant articles, fear, self-censorship, development choices made out of survival, not creativity. You can have
and also, do you want to know one of the really big proofs that gamers are actually not right-wing at all, and this is a totally fake narrative that's being created by weird Karen freaks, is the fact that Metaphor was one of the greatest games that came out last year. And I think that very few people debate that. Metaphor covered very progressive social issues, but it did so in a way that wasn't patronizing to the player, and it was respectful, and it was mature. The entire idea that like gamers, like I don't know what they think that they want, right? And so the media called Dan out. Yeah, I don't know. But Metaphor is one of the top 3 games of all time. It's a very good game, right? Luis Guillaburn. Well, I think Luis Guillaburn is a really great example, right? Is like if he was a villain in a Western video game, he would not be intelligent. He would not be well spoken. He would not be clever. He wouldn't be able to discover the king's magic, right? He wouldn't have been able to do any of these things. He would have just been like this big, dumb, oafish retard that nobody likes, but we have to kill him. Right? He'd have one charisma. He wouldn't be attractive. Exactly.
Opinions on Varva, the choices that he's made and the things that he said. However, this is what happens when coverage turns into punishment, when the writers think that they are moral arbiters instead of critics, when review sites become political weapons instead of industry observers. When the players see the media wield this sort of influence, when they see them fail to represent them, what do you think the end result of that is going to be? And it's not like they've only done this once. They've been doing it the entire time with articles like Yakuza examines masculinity with care but leaves women behind. God of War...
Do you want to know why it leaves women behind? Guess who's playing Yakuza? Just take a guess. I wonder. Ah, jeez. What a fucking mystery. Like, I played the Pirate Yakuza game. This is absolutely a shonen. It is. It's a total shonen. The entire thing is like that. Like, it really, it's a story written with the spirit of a young man. That's the way it is, and that's who it's going to appeal to. Some women might like it, sure. And there's guys that like Animal Crossing. But let's talk about averages.
Director on toxic masculinity and why Kratos has to change. Gaming's toxic men. Explained. Why are game companies so afraid of politics in their games? You watch as their coverage turns from...
Because they're not. They're just afraid of your politics because your politics are stupid.
Criticizing the industry to criticizing the audience for not agreeing with them. At first, it's a couple of studios that are the issue, and then it's everyone except them is the issue. And you can't expect your readers to want to stick around for that, nor be supportive of you or your industry. I mean, at a certain point, you have to wonder who they're even writing for, because clearly it isn't for the player, because the average gamer is not looking...
And that's another really good component that he's bringing up, is like, who is this for? Like, whenever you're writing these articles, like, who's going to read these articles, and like, how many people like that are out there that are going to read them? And we found out the answer to that. Not very many.
To be scolded, psychoanalyzed, or
not
accused of moral failure every time they load up a title that doesn't match with the editor's worldview. But that's what much of their writing has become, a performance of superiority that's aimed at the very people that they need to stay in business. Instead of cultivating a community, they treated them like they were an obstacle. Instead of insight, they're offering disdain. You cannot insult your readers, ignore their values, and then act surprised when they stop showing up. I mean, look at one of the articles that they wrote.
I mean, gamers was used as a pejorative term, and that was started by games journalism. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, that's a really bad way of marketing yourself.
This year. These video games kill fascists, cathartic video games to get your anger out in a healthy way. Listen, I'm all about staying abreast on current events, but watching the fascist white cis hetero patriarchy put boots on the necks of anyone they want gets old fast.
Not for me. I loved Space Marine 2. It was actually amazing. Yeah, I had fun. It was great.
If you feel like dismantling the systems of oppression with wanton destruction, these games provide the sweet feeling you get from bringing the ruling class down a peg.
This is written by some fucking, like, either fat as fuck or 90-pound kid that's, like, at Starbucks. Like, this is a kid that has to, like, cry in his bathtub if the DoorDash delivery driver rings the doorbell instead of leaving the food at the door. It's the most pathetic fucking shit that you've ever seen.
Bro, what the fuck is this? Have you ever thought about the fact that the vast majority of the gaming audience doesn't tune into this, likely aren't even paying attention
about the ruling class? What the fuck is wrong with you?
To politics, and they see this extreme rhetoric and honestly veiled
and it's also like it's so one-dimensional and childish. I think that's also the big problem that a lot of people aren't bringing up, is that the way that they explain these issues are just so bad.
For violence as weird and uncomfortable as hell. You write something like this, you publish this under the banner of a games journalism outlet, and then you wonder why you're sold off and your staff is laid off.
What are the odds?
You alienated your audience. You scared developers into silence. You turned your platform into a weapon. Then you pointed it at the very industry that once embraced you. And for what? Look, let me be clear. There are hardworking people in games media who don't buy into any of this. Talented writers that just want to talk about games, who care about storytelling, systems, and creativity. But they have been
they're YouTubers now.
Found out, undermined by the loudest voices in the room. The ones who treat players like problems, developers like enemies, and their own platforms like a soapbox. This is how you kill an outlet. Congratulations, mission accomplished. You have a lot of these outlets and writers that are talking at people and not with them.
This is what I said, by the way. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, this is it. This is what I said whenever this came out, the news of it. Welcome home. Just the way it is.
At the exact same time being completely detached from reality, which does not help their situation whatsoever. They're pressuring these games to be made. They're pressuring these changes to be made within these games that players aren't even asking for. They're making articles that the audience, that the readers aren't even looking for. Look, man, I'm not here for marching orders. I am here for gaming news. And if that's not what you're going to give to me, then I have no reason to be here. That's what's happening right now. You know, I'll be honest. I had no idea the Polygon was this bad. I had no clue. I haven't really read them in a long time. I usually stick to Insider Gaming because they stick to the news and they have some pretty good writers. But I started going through their article history, and they have some talented people, really talented people. There's some good stuff that they write, but the human eye is trained to find things that don't belong, and there is a lot that doesn't belong on Polygon or on the internet at all, to be honest with you. But you find yourself asking, who is this stuff even being written for? And even more so, why would you even think it's tasteful?
Well, we found out. We found out who it's been written for. No one.
Post some of this stuff. And I know people want to point out the writers, and they are the ones that are writing it, but you have editors.
They found out too.
How do you guys even, how did you have jobs? You don't have them anymore, but how did you have jobs? You should have known not to be posting this kind of stuff. You should have known that's going to drive people away.
Well, no, they don't know that because they put themselves in an echo chamber, and all the people that are around them agree with them and tell them that they're right. And if you do that for long enough, you start believing your own bullshit. And I think that's what's happened.
In a lot of ways, it's just social immaturity. That if you disagree with someone on anything, they have to be the enemy. End of story. That's just where this goes. Yeah. And you can't include their perspective in good faith because, well, it has to be vilified. It has to be demonized. And you're not going to...
A great example of these are Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong. I think those are two really great examples of that happening.
Audience that way, and you're definitely not going to be making any money that way. And I think that the industry... I think these outlets did the same thing that the industry essentially did, which is post-Gamergate, they abandoned the initial audience that they had in search for this wider audience that they
I think that what they wanted to do is they wanted to go beyond games media and games journalism, and they wanted to become like full-on journalists. But the problem is that they didn't have the skill, insight, or knowledge, or probably even like mindset to be genuine, real journalists. So they thought that if we it's kind of like, this is a weird metaphor, right, or analogy, but I'm gonna make it, is I love doing these. It's kind of like, you know how people say like, oh, you have to start in gay porn in order to get to straight porn. I think this is the way a lot of these games journalists thought, is that, okay, well, I'm gonna start writing about video games and then I'm going to become an established journalist in a general sense. Do you see kind of like what I'm saying? I heard that. Yeah, everybody's heard that before, right? That's virtue signaling? Yeah, and I think that's the real reason.
That was out there that had shared values.
No one says that, bro? I don't know. I hear it all the time.
But it just doesn't exist. That's just...
Literally never heard that?
You know, they have to come to the sobering reality that no matter how much you don't agree with your audience, how vile, how vitriolic, how abhorrent they are, you have to find a middle ground with them.
Yeah. Here's a great example of this, like with streaming, is that, like, I do think that streaming is like, it takes some degree of effort and some degree of time. It's not like a super easy thing to do in all circumstances. But I'm not going to sit around and soapbox about that, because at the end of the day, I understand that my audience, number one, like if you go to your barber to get your hair cut, you don't want to listen to your barber complain about their job. So you have like the, like, just really kind of common sense perspective of people don't want to watch a stream where a person is complaining about having to stream. The same as, you know, again, like a barber or whatever. But it's also that people just don't see it the same way that I do. They don't have the same insight that I do because they don't do it. And I don't do what they do either. And so when you try to force people to see the world the way that you do, all you're going to do is force people to see the world the opposite way. In general, the more that you try to push people into believing something that they don't want to, the more that you will push them away.
You have to find a way to be able to reach them. And I know that people are going to point it out and say, well, oh, LD, look how the gaming audience is. These guys do the exact same thing. They pressure these companies. They use social controversy and things of that sort.
That's exactly what we'll do. That's exactly right. Because it works. It worked for games media for years. Absolutely.
It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Guys, I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to tell it to you straight.
And also, by the way, the customer is always right in matters of taste. Games media isn't the customer. We are. That's the difference.
They're the ones that are paying. They're the ones that you need their attention.
Yep.
So either you figure out a way to be able to reach them, or you are reaching for a job application. That's it. You know, that's the thing. The media has just continued to fail to adapt to a lot of these different cultural changes, even the way that media has been consumed over the years. A lot of that has changed, and they haven't adapted to any of that. And from my perspective, while it might be Polygon today, I think they're all going to be Polygon tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Good one.
Guys, we aren't just losing Polygon. We are starting to lose all of them. In an article written by Christopher Dring titled, "The Number of Video Game Articles Dropped by Over 100,000."
That's a good start.
In Q1, he writes, the top 135 video game websites published over 635 articles in Q1 this year.
That's right.
Press engine data reveals. That's a drop of over 13% or more than 100,000 articles compared to the same
Wow.
period in 2024. That number covers reviews,
Only
news,
13%,
guides, features, and
guys.
code pages, and includes websites from all around the world. A lot of the biggest drops were at guide-based productions, but there were also big declines amongst major media outlets, including IGN, GameSpot,
It can get
Famitsu,
even
and
lower.
Eurogamer.
It can get way
The
better.
reason for this decline is no big surprise. According to Press Engine, it has seen 2,902 press contacts disappear from its database over the past 2 years. Those press contacts include amateur, part-time, and freelance journalists, but it ultimately highlights a significant drop in people writing about video games, with redundancies having hit almost every major media publication. There are other factors that are influencing the drop in video game articles, including a continued shift towards covering the biggest titles, a decision driven by changes to Google's search engine. 100,000 fewer articles and nearly 3,000 fewer press contacts is a dramatic shift, but let's not pretend like this is coming out of nowhere. That 13% is a symptom, not a disease. The audience...
It's only the beginning. It's only the beginning. Just keep that in mind.
is gone. The content isn't landing, and thanks to the changes in Google's search algorithms prioritizing the biggest names, unless you're IGN, Forbes, or PC Gamer, you're basically invisible.
Snowball?
And
Yes.
even then, you have to wonder, who's even reading this stuff? I'm not even saying that to be cruel, but I would be
Nobody
hard-pressed
reads
to
it.
name
Nobody
more than
cares.
a dozen gaming outlets off the top of my head, let alone 135. And that's coming from somebody who actually reads this stuff. But then again, what would those missing articles have been about? While some are going to be shocked by this sudden drop, I'm definitely not. I'm wondering who's actually
They're
going to
trash.
miss them. We don't need 15 articles all regurgitating the exact same press release. I've
Yep.
joked about this before, the media using return to form like it's a summoning spell every time a new game that they like flops, but that's the reality. The same quote, same take, same structure, barely any variation. Take the
That's
Grand Theft
also like he's bringing up a very good point about this, is the fact that a lot of the writing is at a fundamental level very bad. It's boring, it's repetitive, it's not interesting. Yeah, it's like, again, if AI can only regurgitate things that were already written and you're worried about AI taking your job as a journalist, then maybe I think you just self-reported. You know, maybe, right?
Auto 6 delay. It was everywhere, but not a single outlet provided anything beyond the basic announcement. No exploration of Take-Two stock dropping, no discussions about how the pressure to meet earnings forecasts could shape Rockstar's
and
internal...
this is the problem that they have, right? Is that they're incapable of any form of second-order analysis at all. And the reason why is that they're so one note with like the way that they see things that it's boring to watch and it's boring to read. Like, people don't want to read. Like, this is one thing, like, I think even newspapers have this problem where, and I think this is a decline of the, this is the decline of people's command over the English language and their ability to communicate with it. And I think that it's been going on for years now, probably 20 years, 30 years, my whole life. Like, I feel like every year people become less literate.
Decisions or set a precedent across the industry, just the same surface level reporting echoed across a dozen sites. That's not journalism, that's a carbon copy feedback loop designed to farm SEO. And of course it is, because it's all just a pipeline for ads. It's no surprise the players are tuning out. Most of these sites are unreadable without an ad blocker. Autoplay videos that are blaring over text, walls of pop-ups that choke out the...
There were porn sites in 2001 that were less intrusive than these different games journalism websites.
Content, even if you do manage to navigate that
It's
minefield,
not even close.
half the time a paywall is going to slam down on you mid-scroll. It's not just bad, it's an actively hostile environment for readers. So players are going elsewhere. They're turning to YouTube and streamers, Twitter and Reddit, TikTok, wherever else they can go, because at least those people are talking to them, not down to them. At least they're entertaining. At least they're authentic. At least they respect your time. You can throw a video on in the background, let it ride while you're at work or you're commuting, and you can get an actual discussion, not a barely rewritten press release.
That's also another really big point, is that this is a meta-level shift in the way that individuals consume content in general, is that most people consume content through multitasking. And I think that's also one of the reasons why people like subtitles in movies, is because sometimes they'll be listening to or paying attention to two things at the same time. And so the reason why is that whenever you're reading something, you need to be one-dimensionally focused on what you're reading. Whereas whenever you're listening to something, like how many of you guys have me on your second monitor right now? Well, it's hard to have an article on your second monitor. So that's, again, another structural weakness that many companies like this have. It's another problem that writing has, and it's harder for... And the issue really is, like, how do you solve that? You write things that are more compelling, but they can't do that.
In ads, which honestly, that makes this all the more baffling that these outlets have not adapted. Videos should be their strong suit. They already write this kind of content.
IGN does a good job.
Turn it into a script, do a voiceover, add some footage, post it to YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, anywhere. There is no excuse. You know, I was stunned to realize that I am catching up to Kotaku and YouTube subscribers. Me, a guy that's making videos.
At this. 2K views. Kevin Smith. This guy is a fucking legend. This is Silent fucking Bob. And you have it has 2,000 views. How do you get Kevin Smith on your channel if you're only getting 2,000 views after 7 months? It's pathetic.
In his spare time, closing the gap on an outlet that's been around since 2004.
He's no longer relevant? Bullshit. If Kevin Smith was on Theo Vaughn, that episode would have over 1 million views.
Has 1.4 million subscribers.
Bullshit.
And sure, some of their videos actually get some pretty solid views, but they only post once or twice a month. And when they do, it's stuff that people didn't even ask for, like a lore video or a lore breakdown video on how Avowed does lore better than everybody else, a game that's already fading from memory and was widely criticized for being bad at lore. I mean, the business side of me is genuinely frustrated that these guys are sitting on a goldmine of content and they are wasting it. Skill Up and Gamer Ranks write articles and newsletters and then they turn it into content. Why can't they? They write multiple articles a week, convert them into videos, double dip. Instead, they cry about AI stealing their jobs and sue OpenAI, even though half of their writers are probably using ChatGPT behind the scenes to...
No, they're not using ChatGPT. If they were, the articles would be better.
Their deadlines by spinning up slightly different versions of what everybody else has already written. The truth is, there is no outside force that's killing them. Not AI, not YouTubers, not Google. It's their own lack of adaptability.
I would disagree with this partially. I actually do think that they're being kind of like, you're burning the candle at both ends, but there's 5 ends, right? Like attention spans are going down, media consumption trends are changing, the audiences are becoming increasingly polarized against you, you're pushing narratives that don't resonate with an audience, and you put all these things together, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. So it's not really just the fact that they are woke or whatever. This is a problem that's facing all media. It's facing newspapers even. So the fact is that, like, there's just been a generalized shift away from this overall. People cannot read more than a menu. Yeah.
Lack of relatability, that's what's actually eating these guys alive. This collapse is total and it's systemic. It's not just a few bad outlets or a couple controversial takes. It's not just Polygon or Kotaku that's writing things that nobody cares about. It's an entire media apparatus out of step with the players, out of touch with developers.
Well, it's because any time that somebody mentions one of these problems and gives it any form of authenticity, they get reprimanded by everybody else in the professional industry. So there's a chilling effect for talking about these things in any sort of an authentic way, which makes people think that the media is biased, and it's because it is.
Completely unprepared for how media consumption has evolved. And they haven't just failed to adapt, they've doubled down on the very behaviors that is driving audiences away in the first place. Instead of reflecting, learning from the failures of their peers, they are lashing out. Instead of reporting, they are correcting. Look no further than PC Gamer's roundup of 2024's biggest gaming controversies. They boiled down the criticisms of Assassin's Creed Shadows just to outrage over Yasuke, as if concerns about historical authenticity were conjured out of nowhere. Definitely not.
And it's also like, and this is the other thing too, is that these people think that they have the authority to tell people what they're allowed to care about. If somebody doesn't like Yasuke, it doesn't matter what the reason is for it. They're still not going to buy the game. And so if you want to create an apparatus, and this is the problem, is that these people are so selfish. They think that creating and insulating developers from any form of genuine feedback or criticism is something that's helping them. And then these developers get laid off and their lives are ruined because they were falling for a lie. They were being told a lie by these game developers, or sorry, these game journalists, and these companies telling them, oh, this is what people want. No, it's not. And because you've been lied to, what's happened is that you've led yourself down this path that's damaging.
Brought up by Ubisoft themselves, they ignored valid conversations, and by doing so, they poisoned the well. Then there was their response to Black Myth Wukong when Game Science didn't apologize for some loose allegations that were made against them.
This was, in my opinion, I think this was the worst one. Because it was the most blatant attempt at the media mafia, and it was the most transparent example of it happening. It was such an attack. It was.
Naturally, the usual parts of the Twitter sphere were thrilled to see a developer being so based, especially since Black Myth Wukong was a hit. Proof positive that real gamers don't want politics in their games or some such. Others viewed the whole thing more as just strange and a little creepy.
There are no others. They didn't exist. It's just you. This is what media likes to paint a false majority by having terms like proponents, opponents, people online, voices, things like that. But what they're doing is they're creating a false parody. There actually is no parody. There's like 3 or 4 people saying this, and then everybody else is calling them retarded. It's like a literally 95-5 or 99-1 situation that they're trying to make people perceive as if it's 50-50.
Then they finished with saying, it's hard not to read the silence as a sign that Game Science feels it has nothing to apologize for.
It doesn't.
Yeah, maybe that's because they don't actually have anything to apologize for. Maybe not every developer needs to pass a moral purity test before they're allowed to ship a game. Maybe some of these studios just want to make something cool without having to grovel for forgiveness for every manufactured scandal. But instead of respecting that, the media wants to treat silence like it's an admission of guilt. And this kind of behavior
that's because silence is an admission of guilt, and they're guilty of not getting ad revenue. They create the problem. The company responds to the problem. They monetize the problem being created. They monetize the response. They monetize everything. So this entire problem is created by media in order to sustain media. But as soon as you take a step out of it and you move out of this problem, it doesn't exist at all. Because it never actually did.
Everywhere. Bias is embedded into everything. Contempt for the audience is on full display. They retreat to places like Blue Sky to avoid feedback, posting articles like gamers are terrible people and we should stop being okay with it, only to follow it up later with it's time to start trusting video game reviewers. Yeah.
Nope.
That trust is not coming back. Not after years of talking down to players, punishing developers, and turning the medium built on creativity into a battleground for personal agendas. Polygon's collapse is not an isolated failure. It's a forecast. And it's a warning sign for all of these outlets still pretending like they have a voice of authority while the audience is quietly walking away. You don't get to ignore the people that you claim to speak for. You don't get to mock the community, miss the story, and still expect to be relevant.
That's
you either evolve or you fade out. For most of them, they already have. The press didn't lose the audience. They pushed them away. Now they're watching the lights go out, one outlet at a time. Now, this may sound crazy, but games journalism isn't dead. The reason why I say that is because I can bring up an article, I can cite it, I can read it word for word, and people will still engage. People will still watch the video. They'll enjoy it. They'll be entertained by it. They'll hear my opinion, the opinion of the writer. They'll come to their own opinion because it's an open dialogue, not a sermon. With so many of these outlets wanting to educate audiences instead of inform them, it's no surprise why nobody wants to listen.
And that's another thing about the educating thing. The educating term, like just the word, is very, it's patronizing. Because it's implying your ignorance and it's implying their superiority.
Listen to them. You know, we can have a conversation about how women are portrayed in games or diversity in games or whatever the hell else you want to talk about. We can do that without having to vilify the audience that you're trying to reach in the first place. It doesn't make any sense. I brought it up. The ESA reported in 2023 that 53% of gamers in the U.S. alone are men. 72% of them are white. It is not enough.
It's way more than 53%, and everybody knows it. The reason why it's so high for women is because they're counting bullshit games like Candy Crush. If you're talking about actual male gamers that are playing PC games that are selling for $60, you're looking at an 80+% audience of men. That's just the way it is. And I bet 80% is probably low. I really didn't know that. It's obvious. It's completely fucking obvious. You can't not count girl games. Come on. Of course I can. There's 5 of them. And there's 500 male games.
Effective strategy to vilify a large subsection of the audience that supports you or your industry. This isn't ideology, it's just math. You can reach these people.
Here's a really great way to look at it. How many women that are popular in video gaming are not attractive? That's right. 0.
Talk to them, and in most cases, they'll be willing to listen. But the minute that you start using buzzwords and catchphrases and try to bring politics into the conversation is the minute that their minds turn off. They turn away from the conversation. It's not an
attractive, appealing to men. My point is that in all of games media and streaming and content that's made for video games online, it is a prerequisite to at least be conventionally attractive for a female to be able to build an audience. And the reason why is because primarily that audience will be male. That's a fact. That's it. Like, it's Frogan's not a streamer. She doesn't stream video games. Number one, like, that's not even the point.
Effective way to run a business, and it is definitely not an effective way to have a conversation. These are things that these guys should be professionals at. You know, beyond that, written media, that's really what's dying out. And some of it has to do with attention span. Some of it has to do with a lot of the ads that are on some of these sites. You know, most of these sites don't even have a dark mode.
Yeah, the sites are awful. And yeah, I mean, like, you can get away with being an unattractive guy in games media, but you can't get away with being an unattractive girl. And the reason why is because men are the primary audience, and men don't want to look at an ugly bitch. That's just a fact.
That's so aggressive.
Get mad, but that's it.
It hurts my eyes, man. Why do you do this to me?
Sorry.
You know, if it's not on Twitter or Reddit, most people aren't going to be reading
Somebody
it. In a lot of
say
cases,
it.
they're getting most of their information
Let's
from
be
YouTube
real.
videos more than anything else. You have to adapt. You have to capitalize on that. And you have to do
Here
anything.
comes another dozen articles. Yep. And they'll all be calling me a sexist. They'll say that I objectify women. I do, by the way. All the time I do. I'm not sorry. I'm going to keep doing it. And you're going to call me every single word except for one. And that's wrong.
Other than what you're doing right now. Because it's not working. And to be honest with you, I don't really want all of them to go. I've said this multiple times.
I do.
There's tons of writers that I like.
I do.
And the minute that some of these folks start to wake up to some of this stuff is the minute things can get a little bit better. And I genuinely hope that they do.
Yes.
So hopefully some writers found a gleam of solid information in here, or a little bit of advice that they might take into their writing, or maybe they take into their YouTube career, or whatever it might be. Who knows? Thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy the video, share the video, like the video, comment down below. Make sure you guys
I don't know how they're going to learn anything that's going to help them doing DoorDash, but, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe they can explain. Yeah, well, maybe if they play a game like Crazy Taxi or whatever, maybe they'd understand.
To the channel so that
Try
I
post
can
on Truth. Yeah, I'll
go past Kotaku.
Yeah.
Outside of that, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Catch me on Twitch, and I'll smell you guys later.
That was a good video. I think he pretty much, he explained it like he's not even as harsh as I am about gaming journalism. Like, I view a lot of journalists and journalism as the active enemy of the people. And I think that they actively try to misrepresent, misconstrue, and mislead audiences. And they actively work against the public. Enemies of the state. I mean, I wouldn't say they're enemies of the state, but I think that they are enemies of the truth. I think there's definitely that. And so, yeah, but let's see here. Kevin Smith went on Theo Von's show. Oh. Do you remember when I said if Kevin Smith went on Theo Von's show, it would have 1 million views? That's crazy. Wow. Wow. Whoa. What a surprise. Look at that. It's fucking obvious. Everybody knows it. Yeah, duh. Yeah, genius. Yeah, I'm not a wizard for knowing that. I'm normal. Anyway, do you think there's deliberate efforts in the gaming industry to mute voices? Yes. I think that the gaming journalism industry absolutely tried to bully and mute people that disagreed with them. They 100% did that. And that's one of the reasons why I am not sympathetic at all to them whenever bad things happen to them. It's because you actively use this as a weapon, and now the weapon is being used against you. And, you know, you get what you fucking deserve.
And finally, new role. Let's hear it for Democratic politicians who keep it.
With a quote. Let me know if you agree with it. Here it is. Tarkov has done irreparable damage to the games industry. Everything needs to be a what do you call them? Extraction shooter. Those are the words of an exasperated man. That man is from New Blood Interactive. He's the founder. His name is David Oshry. And while he does go on to poke some fun at himself, basically saying, I'm an old boomer, I'm not the target audience of this game, he did say what many people are actually feeling, that just like with the Battle Royales, we see yet another groan-worthy industry trend-chasing event where everything has got to be a bloody extraction shooter. I mean, even Respawn was making a Titanfall extraction shooter before it was cancelled, because hey, Titanfall can't be Titanfall. But recently, something happened to change this story a little bit. Marathon happened, but then Arc Raiders happened, and Arc Raiders is getting traction in a way that Marathon has not. And figuring out why, I've came to a hell of a realization. So, let's get the show on the road. Tarkov is an extraction game, but not all extraction games are like Tarkov. Extraction is essentially just this. Games where a player enters a level, attempts to gather valuable resources, and then extracts those back to some sort of meta progression layer. Tarkov fits that, but so does Repo, Lethal Company, and Helldivers 2. Each of those does well off the absurd wacky comedy you get when you've got these messy little meaty things called human beings interacting in a group with a whole bunch of interesting systems. That's basically what makes the genre kinda cool. So what's different, then, about games like Tarkov or Marathon? Well, simple, right? PvE and PvP. Tension stems from the potential for loss in both, but in PvE, it feels like a loss, while in PvP, it feels like something has been taken from you by another person, and that does not appeal to everyone, but it obviously does appeal to a lot of people, because the tension is second to goddamn none. Anyway, the point is that as Bungie probably noticed when they looked at their majority PvE Destiny audience, talk about Marathon, yeah, not everybody likes the PvP part, but this actually goes deeper. PvE games can naturally coexist. They're inherently more positive sum, but without players, a PvP game is dead. So, of course, our eyes roll at the sight of yet another PvP extraction game. We think they just seem like, oh, another game that's probably going to fail, so why even bother getting excited? Marathon invoked that feeling. Now, to be fair, part of that is just general, breached trust with Bungie, but a lot of it is just the big trend that we've seen this all before with the Battle Royale. But why is it that Marathon invokes that, but Arc Raiders does not? See, here's the thing. Both games just had alphas, but the responses to those alphas could not have been more different. Marathon's alpha lasted just under 2 weeks, and according to Paul Tassi's sources, it actually didn't go as planned. That's actually now true on multiple levels. So first off, it was to be a closed alpha, a closed test, but Bungie allegedly lifted the NDA in an attempt to counter the skeptical reception that they got to the reveal of their game. Now, going a level deeper, it's obviously a true alpha, not just a marketing exercise or a server test, right? And Paul Tassi's sources corroborate that it, again, is a real test of game design and systems. So whenever players who have played the testing version say that Marathon cannot launch like this, they're literally correct. It can't. It's a true alpha. It never should be launched. Now, we all understand why Bungie responded this way, right? They were doing an alpha anyway. They had mixed reception, and they basically thought, seeing is believing. We need people to get footage out there. Just like, say, what EA actually did with Battlefield in a little bit of a way. But to go back to the story, unfortunately for Bungie, a true alpha often won't make for an explosive marketing coup because it's true alpha. It's not going to blow people away with its polish. But even then, reactions have been mixed, and they fall into two broad camps. This is what matters. One, it doesn't have enough extraction shooter genre conventions to satisfy genre fans. Problem two, it doesn't have a strong enough hook to pull in non-extraction shooter fans. That's a little bit of a pickle, and those non-extraction shooter fans are in many cases going to be Destiny players. You know, the audience that Bungie actually has. And that is a rough situation for them. And while this is not some sort of huge rejection of the game, Paul Tassi points out there are hundreds of thousands of people trying to get codes, or there were, in the Marathon Discord. What it does is it sets a bad tone. And that is a bad tone that Arc Raiders just exploited. In a way, this is actually just goddamn tragic. So, Marathon is effectively where Arc Raiders was in June 2023. It's a small-scale technical test designed to get feedback on the core systems and stability. But Arc Raiders then got the luxury of 2 whole years of iteration ahead of its full launch, which is, going to be this year. Marathon, though, has until September. So not only did Arc have more time, but it also is able to meet those Marathon criticisms head on. Genre fans get what they would expect. There is proximity chat, solo queuing, crafting, and that's only to name a few. But most importantly, the hooks for Arc have actually landed, where it's now not just appealing to the hardcore genre fans. And that's, I think, quite because it's third-person, post-apocalyptic setting. You're heading to the surface for 30 minutes, scavenging what you can, getting back underground before you're killed by other players or big giant robots. It's actually doing enough to hook in other people, and I think it helps that, my God, they have executed their vibe, their visuals, their sound, their graphic design. They've really nailed that. And the response to actually playing this game has been really positive from the people who have got access, especially in the streaming community. There's footage from Shroud, Jack Frags, and the others that are showing off essentially the best of what an extraction game can be. That you get emergent narrative moments of, taking on threats, negotiation with opponents, tense combat, all of that blending together with these photogrammetry built locations that look stunning, and a lo-fi 80s sci-fi aesthetic that they've absolutely nailed. That's strong stuff. But mostly, it's a traditional extraction shooter gameplay that's just been hyper-polished and iterated on. And that makes complete sense, because technically, it really doesn't seem that this thing's changed much since the early footage in 2022. Obviously, behind the scenes it has, that's the whole point. They may look fairly similar to us as players, just comparing frames of trailers, but all those years of work actually went somewhere. And that's what brings us to the other Marathon comparison, reveals going poorly. You see, here's the funny thing. Embark, the developer behind Arc Raiders, initially revealed it as a PvE extraction game, but they then delayed it to work in the finals, and then they pivoted Arc over to PvP after basically doing PvP playtests internally and them literally just having more fun. Now, I get that from their perspective, but that was a bit of a bold thing. You told people it would be PvE, so it's not surprising that their re-reveal of that as a PvP game completely backfired. I saw goddamn rage everywhere back, June 2023. It was just that perfect mix of disappointment and anger. But it actually turns out that in video games, polish actually does make the difference. In removing PvE, Arc took the thing that hyped people the most away. And that's the point where these two games diverge. Arc gets so much polish that it stands out beyond its genre, basically convincing people that no, this actually is worth paying attention to. Marathon, though, well, it gets an NDA lifted, revealing a game too early in development to stand above its genre. That's absolutely going to sting for the developers. Just think what they've been through, being at Bungie this last while with all the chaos. But as much as that's true, we are skeptical for a reason. And this is the big learning, because it goes deeper than just trend chasing. Nexon acquired Embark, Embark of course being the Arc Raiders developers, in 2021. And it's easy to read the change to Arc Raiders as a, you know, hey, make the game PvP, make more money, just like Tarkov, we're Nexon, money me now. Yeah, you could read it as that. But part of the distinction between PvP and PvE extraction games is that PvP creates more potential for interesting gameplay. That's basically just because it's hard to make AI so good that the AI can top the sheer chaos created by other players. That's also why Dave Oshry was kind of, you know, wink wink nudge nudge mad about things. You see, that quote I was talking about at the top of the video, that was him reacting to Hidetaki Miyazaki from Software, and the fact that he really likes Tarkov. Yes, Miyazaki loves Tarkov. Talking about the Duskbloods, which is the new FromSoft game, he told IGN that the network functionality and the game design were particularly interesting, quote, in Tarkov, for example. So I'm basically paying attention to those elements as a creator and a fan of the game. So, yeah, basically, Mr. Elden Ring, Mr. Dark Souls, really likes Tarkov. And that's what he's bringing to the next game. So in one way, the Duskbloods has a similar inspirational lineage, this is where it gets wild, as something like Clair Obscura Expedition 33. That may seem wild, but hold on a second. It's the result of a developer who finds something compelling in the systems of a game that they love, and they want to see what they can do with that. That's what Expedition 33 does to Final Fantasy X. It's what Miyazaki wants to do with Tarkov. It seems to actually come from a genuine place. That may even be why could actually be pretty damn good. I think there's something noble in that, and perhaps, well, more so in convincing Nintendo to actually pay for that experiment. I'm sure they like the idea of having an extraction. Because there's also the industry component to this. Investors and publishers will think that they have seen this pattern before. By pattern, I mean this. PUBG was the first big battle royale game, right? But it was Fortnite that made it approachable and massively scaled it beyond the hardcore audience. So with that in mind, why did COD and Battlefield ram extraction modes in? Why are the big companies doing extraction? Why are ex-veteran AAA developers on the whole west coast of America all funded by random VCs to make extraction games these days? Well, the same reason, right? If PUBG is Tarkov, then we have not seen the Fortnite equivalent. And that's why there's so much money behind this genre. To you and me, it's yet more companies doing stupid trend chasing. It's another rush of just companies slinging minimum viable products at us. That's the big point. That's why we roll our eyes, right, at, oh my god, Realm Royale, wow, another BR, that's just what I needed. And if you ask me, that's the difference between the highlight games of this video, of Marathon and Arc Raiders. Basically, Marathon has went down the way that it did because it feels like a minimum viable product. It right now is an alpha in the truest sense, even though it apparently has got to come out in September. Arc Raiders does not feel like that. It does not feel like a minimum viable product because we know what it looked like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we know that they've just relentlessly honed it. That doesn't feel like something that's just been shat out to try to capture some of a genre, and that's why, as players, we have responded differently. In a world full of skepticism and lacking in authenticity, the way to cut through, funnily enough, is to just be fucking earnest. And it seems that's what this game's managed to do. As much as the Arc Raiders feelings are good, I do want to be clear, it kind of feels like we're reaching a tipping point here. If only because we're now seeing non-extraction companies like, say, FromSoft and Bungie trying their hands at doing extraction games. Now, this might all be driven by the fact that Tarkov is finally releasing its, full version this year. Yeah, it's finally not a beta. And that means that it will actually be on Steam for the first time as well. So there's really never been a better chance to break out before that big incumbent ends up in Steam. Arc Raiders is appealing to the Tarkov audience by giving them a similar experience, right? They're, proximity chat, things that, say, Bungie are not doing. It's giving them the similar things, but in a new setting and with supplementary mechanics and movement and all of that make their game experience stand out. Marathon, though, is trying to reach the console audience that made Destiny a success, and to do that, they're trying to do an approachable take on the genre. Hence, them disagreeing, right, with the genre hardcores and things like proximity chat. That means they cannot count on the hardcore audience. They're literally not trying to appeal to them. But big picture, we might be at the crest of a wave here. If you account for pandemic shutdown, we're at the point where the funding that started so many different extraction shooters is finally bearing fruit. That means a bunch are going to be coming out. But if these massive games do not see the expected investor returns, perhaps as fast as investors want them, and it turns out that Tarkov really is the ceiling of the extraction shooter, well, then maybe extraction shooters will end up like flight sims or hidden object games, where, well, there's tiny dedicated indies and, you know, 1 or 2 big players in the scene with not that much in between. I would not be surprised if that happens. It very much could be the case that hunger for the next version of the Battle Royale was misplaced. That may be what they want, but that really, right, if you think about your Fortnites and a lot of those games, what are they doing? Well, they're pivoting towards user-generated content. They are going for the business model of tomorrow. It's not a business model that I like, but it's what they're going for. Meanwhile, you could say these trend chasers are trying to replicate something that happened, 8 years ago? Which may not be the best play for today's market. And speaking of plays for today's market, well, Xbox just went and made everything expensive, including video games. So Nintendo have done it, Xbox have done it, everyone else is going to do it. So if you want to know what's going on, watch this video next.
Putin is direct talks with Ukraine. Holy shit.
Russian President Vladimir Putin appears to have shrugged off demands for an immediate unconditional ceasefire starting tomorrow. European leaders and the U.S. are trying to put pressure on Putin to agree to the month-long ceasefire. And the hopes, of course, is to bring an end to this 3-year-long war. Yesterday, Putin proposed direct negotiations, but he wants them done in Istanbul. And on Thursday, he made no mention of the ceasefire. Responding to Putin's speech, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it's a positive sign that Russians have finally begun to consider ending the war.
That's good.
And that Kyiv is ready for direct talks with Russia. CNN has Seb Shukla. He's following the latest in
I
London.
sure hope this happens, bro. This shit's been going on for 3 fucking years.
And we're going to start
That's a long
with Nick
time.
Payton Walsh. He is in Kyiv. And Nick,
think about how many
just a
billions of
moment ago,
dollars got
my
wasted
producer
over this
told me
shit.
that, you know, you were kind of out of the camera lens because there is a threat that's happening now that's in direct context of this ceasefire discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon here for there to be air raid sirens. We had some early this morning. We've had some in the last 10 minutes. This, though, specifically the Ukrainian Air Force warning of a ballistic missile
He
threat
said I'll meet with
to the
Putin on
capital,
Thursday?
Kiev.
Oh, my God.
Here. As I say, not uncommon. Every night, Ukraine,
That's huge.
with the exception of a couple of nights during Russia's unilaterally declared ceasefire in which they continue front-line fighting. Every night, Ukraine is hit by Russian attack drones and often ballistic missiles too. So that's just some context, though, for this discussion of diplomacy, which at times can feel very ethereal and detached from the gritty reality here of missiles being fired often at civilian areas.
Damn.
So where we are today is a European demand with Ukraine and with US backing for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire has not been accepted at this point by Russian President Vladimir Putin. And indeed, in very late night comments early this morning, he talked about how Ukraine hadn't honored previous ceasefires. Ukraine says Russia has indeed. There's evidence, frankly, that these have been very rocky when they've been declared unilaterally, certainly in terms of Moscow's adherence to them. He talked too about the need for direct negotiations between Ukraine and Russia and gave a date for that, Istanbul, on Thursday. Now, none of that is new. There have been talks between some parties in Istanbul in the past. And indeed,
I could see that happening.
The idea of direct
no
talks
doubt.
between the two countries has been agreed to in different types of wording by both Kiev and Moscow. So what Putin, I think, is suggesting is another diplomatic phase here in a country and a capital, in Istanbul, a city where indeed we've seen diplomacy before. But we've heard from the French President Emmanuel Macron, who did a lot of the lifting to get us to this point of the demand for a ceasefire, speaking to President Trump in the past days many times indeed. He called this, suggested this was another delaying tactic. He said in a tweet and a post on social media that there must be a ceasefire first, that you can't have negotiations while civilians are indeed being shelled.
He's right about that. I mean, it just makes sense. Yeah, that's the same logic that I was like, because you remember how, like, whenever Trump paused the tariffs to do a negotiation, this is the same logic that I was using. Like, yeah, of course, right? 100%.
By Russian bombs, and so it appears the European demand remains the same. That's been echoed by Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, that ceasefire first, then talks. What we don't know yet is if, indeed, the White House, President Trump putting a very positive post out after Putin's comments last night.
Yeah.
We don't know if that is in fact going to result in the massive sanctions that French President Emmanuel Macron talked about yesterday as being the consequence if Russia doesn't sign up to the ceasefire.
Wow.
He said he had American backing for that. Donald Trump said he continued to work with Ukraine and Russia to be sure this process moved forwards. We don't know the timing of when those potential consequences might.
I mean, how can they put that many sanctions on Russia already that aren't already on them? And also, don't they rely on Russia? I know Germany does. They rely on Russia for tons of energy. So I don't know really how much they could actually do.
Kick in, or indeed if they'll have the same kind of hard backing.
Not anymore.
The Europeans suggested they would.
They were able to move away from it
yesterday in Kiev.
Nick Payton-Walls for us there in Kiev. Thanks so much.
Good.
Let's go now to CNN Sebastian Shukla in London. Sebastian, the consequences,
German here.
as
Pretty sure
Nick laid out,
Russian
we
oil.
don't know
That's
yet.
good. I didn't
What
know
is
that. That's new.
clear is that this is not going to satisfy Europe after they set that ultimatum, that demand just yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's right. What the Kremlin and President Putin are trying to do here is move the ball back into Western Europe's court here and say, look, okay, you guys are prepared to put an ultimatum on us of this ceasefire, which needs to begin on Monday. But what President Putin is doing is saying, okay, I raise your 30-day ceasefire ultimatum on Monday. I'm going to say, let's have direct talks between Kyiv and Moscow, which is something, as Nick was saying, is not new, but certainly haven't happened since the early days of the invasion in February 2022. So this is President Putin again trying to pull the rug and fool and trick the West into thinking that he is making and serious about peace and ending.
I mean, I really can't say he's probably like. I mean, really, he's been fucking around a lot. I mean, yeah, it's why I watch CNN. Well, I mean, they're just explaining what happened, right? I mean, I try to watch. People always criticize. It's funny because, like, people criticize me for watching Fox News, and then when I watch CNN, people criticize me for watching CNN. I think some people just don't want to hear things they disagree with. That's all.
The war in
That's
Ukraine.
the real
there
reason.
There may be some substance to that. Don't forget that the administration led by Donald Trump has kowtowed to Moscow in many ways. You know, it sidelined Ukraine, it's sidelined its European partners and held direct talks with Moscow.
Yeah, of
but
course.
then that rhetoric changed again, where we saw Senator Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, come out and say, well, look, we're losing patience, and the administration...
Isn't it crazy that White House crash out with Zelensky was like... It's crazy to go back on that and remember that even happened. That was a crazy level of a crash out.
Strung on a little by the Kremlin.
Live
so
on
this may
TV
be
and
yet
everything.
Another ploy by Moscow to be able to say, look, no, we're serious
You don't have
about
the cards,
negotiations, but within
Where's your
all of
thank
this,
you?
the context and framework is so important. You can say you want to have the discussions, but so far, President Zelensky and nobody else has ruled out attending them.
Seb Shukla for us in London. Thanks so much. Do you think that this offer from President Putin attempting to skip by this request or this demand for a 30-day ceasefire and go straight to talks in Istanbul on Thursday will be enough to peel off President Trump, who wants a quick finish, who wants a win, from what we saw from him yesterday?
They're trying to make Trump look
standing
bad.
shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine and the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
I think it's designed to do that. Trump wants quick action, and Russia is showing that it is on the side of peace. And I think Zelensky's response is also designed to appease Trump, to say, look, I'm not the one.
They say they what? Wait, what? Wait, what? That Russia's on the side of peace? Wait, what?
In the way of peace. The Europeans, I think, are taking the more realistic view. We've heard from President Macron of France saying this is Russia just buying time. I think that's the more accurate description of it.
Yeah, that's
but
probably
both
what's going on.
Moscow and Kyiv are signaling towards Washington, not towards the Europeans.
Bobby Ghosh, always good to have you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anytime.
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day,
That
24
didn't happen.
hours.
That did not happen.
Because I'll meet with Putin, I'll meet with Zelensky.
Yep, that did not
They both have
happen.
weaknesses and they both have strengths.
Yep.
And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. I'll have it done in 24 hours.
Yep.
So it's been more than 24 hours since the president became president again. Putin did say overnight that he's open to direct talks, unconditional talks with Ukraine, but Zelensky says there must be a ceasefire first. Over the weekend, the U.S. and European leaders threatened sanctions against Russia if they
It's
did
not
not
like he
agree
didn't try.
to a ceasefire. How do you make,
sure
what do you
Biden
make of the way
tried
that Trump
too.
has been handling this situation so far?
You heard it in that clip, and you heard it from this report from reporting Olivia was talking about. He's very relational, and he's a nationalist. He has very good relationships with people like Modi, with Putin, quite frankly, and they have their own interests. Modi has his own interests, his own popularity base in India because because of Hindu nationalism, because of the way he's run that country.
Biden was trying to stay awake.
When
Yeah,
America
true.
pulls back a bit from the world and encourages nationalist impulses,
Actually reminds me of
nationalist
that View
leaders,
thing. I'll watch
Modi,
that after
who's
this.
seen even by some in India as a strongman, they don't always act on America's best interests. Russia's not acting in America's interest. Russia's acting in its own. Ukraine and Europe have less faith in the administration as actually the United States as a broker than they did. They're looking more towards each country's individual interest. And I think you're starting to see the very beginnings of what that means. If the United States is not swooping in with a deal, if it's dealing with these countries as they are, with their own intent, with what's best for their polities, they're going to get a different deal. You saw in India, one story that came out of this was Chinese Chengdu plane. A plane that China was manufacturing performed very well. A reminder that there is a vast power much closer to India with much more history there.
Did he see the video game footage? Oh, jeez.
That has its own influence growing in the region because America's pulling out. So there are a lot of complications that are harder than getting a deal one day because you're friends with the president or the prime minister.
Sure, right. Okay, well, there it is. And this guy's a comedian, right? Yeah, India and China are friends. Yes. Oh, my God. Armor's got another victim. Wow, bro. Like, how do you play this shit? And, like, I don't even know how you do this. Like, this is unbelievable how this fucking happens. But I guess this is the way the world is now, right? Here we go.
Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities.
There's a growing concern, Mr. President, that you are in fact retarded. Would you care to comment on these claims and respond to them?
In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that, number one. Number two, you know, think of what we're left with. We're left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started. Not since the Civil War. We had a circumstance where...
Wait, Civil War?
Not since the Civil War.
Oh, not since
We had a
Civil War.
circumstance where we were in a position that the pandemic, because of the incompetence of the last outfit, end up over 1 million people dying. 1 million people dying.
Didn't people die all over the world? I mean, the pandemic fucked up everybody. You can't really blame, in my opinion, you can't really blame the pandemic on Trump when it happened to every fucking country in the world. Really, it just doesn't make sense.
And we're also in a situation where we found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And one of the things that and
Alyssa, one of the things.
Oh, jeez. Ah, jeez.
I think, is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single
He works so hard. Guys, he's working his ass. Come on. He works so hard. You can't be mean to him. Come on. Who is she? It's his wife. She was probably halfway the 46th president.
day. I mean, he'd get up, he'd put in a full day, and then at night he would...
A full day? What do you mean by like a full day? A full day of what?
You know, reading my book, and he was still on the phone, reading his briefings, working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop. It's the White House.
You know, one thing that really assures people that there was no cognitive decline is the fact that 1 minute into the question about his cognitive decline, his wife had to take over about explaining that there wasn't a cognitive decline. Like that. That really sells it.
Is not like a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a life that you live. You live it 24 hours a day. That phone can ring at 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. It's constant. You never leave it. And Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president. And if you look at things today...
Are they going to give him a participation award at the end of this? Like, here, we've got a pin for you. It says, #1 president. He's AFK, yes. Oh, God. Why don't we bring him out some ice cream?
If you look at things today, give me Joe Biden anytime.
See, they should have just, you know what? They should have just had her come out and be like, you know, like for the debate, they should have had her be like his translator. You know how, like, you know, when he's talking to like Vladimir Putin and like they have to translate it from like Russian to English? Well, I think they'd have to translate this guy. She'd have to explain it. Like, yeah, they should have just had her come out.
That's worth the invitation to come to the show.
Great. And he does. See, the thing is that Joe is doing the exact thing that I did in school in a group project when I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Is that once everything is wrapping up, you tell a joke to make people laugh. And then that way everybody's thinking about you. Their last impression is of you. And they're going to imagine that you actually were doing what you were supposed to be doing, right? But I did this in like 8th grade, okay? Like this is, he still got it in him. No, well, this was always a thing that you would do, is that they would call on me because they would go down in a row, and like I obviously wouldn't know anything because it's like, you know, how many of you guys did the assigned reading last night? Well, I mean, I was in BlackRock Foundry, okay, or sorry, BlackRock Depths back then. You know, like I was busy. I don't have time to read your stupid book. Like I was getting gear, I was getting loot, and so I'm trying to become a grand marshal, and you want me to read Ketcher and Narai? What is this stupid bitch thinking? And so anyway, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, of course. And so instead of that, I would always just simply tell a joke. I would tell a joke, make the class laugh, and then they'd move on to the next person. And everybody would totally forget about the fact that I actually had no idea. I never read the book. I didn't know anything. But I said the funny thing.
That's worth the invitation to come to the show.
And there it is, right? Oh, jeez. It's bad, bro. It's real bad.
Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that...
it's not there. And let's see.
watching him on The View today and watching some of the interviews he did over
Thank you for your viewership.
Yeah, I saw it. It's rare for me, but I did watch it. I will just say, watching him over the last few days reminded me that a whole bunch of people were telling
this is the Joe Biden quality.
us with a straight face that this man was capable of serving another 4 years as president.
Yeah.
And these appearances,
he could be the
coupled with
president
what
right
I
now.
understand is going to be the equivalent of a nuclear bomb dropped on the Democratic Party when Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book come out next week. I don't know that the Democrats have fully internalized what's about to happen to them. Between what he looks like today and what they're about to report, get ready.
I am not sure that Joe. You just said that you said that he told Kamala Harris that she could not have any distance
False.
from him.
It's been reported. He told
it doesn't
her
matter what he
point
was.
blank. He told her point blank, no daylight, kid, no daylight.
Because reporting can never be wrong.
Are you attacking?
Well, it sure as hell was about him.
The journalism around it?
You think reporting can never be wrong? You come on here and you attack reporting every night.
I do not.
We actually asked him.
You're attacking reporting? Since when is attacking reporting a bad thing? I don't even understand the premise of this.
There's critical reporting about this guy, and he told her point blank, no daylight.
We asked him directly today. Did you tell her that?
You think he's ever told a lie?
I don't think he tells many lies.
Well, what about the lie about how, he wasn't going to do a pardon? Because that was a pretty big one, right? Well, maybe he forgot that he said that. I could see that. Maybe he forgot he said he wasn't going to do the pardon. That's possible. Didn't he preemptive pardon? Yeah, for 10 years.
I don't think he tells many lies. I don't think he's done a
Come on.
You know why you don't get to laugh like that? Because you support a guy who lies every freaking day and lies continuously. You support a guy who cannot acknowledge.
This is the crash out that I mean, is that whenever people like this ever get called out, they create like this weird thing where it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're making stuff up, but you're also making stuff up. It's like, oh, okay, so then you're making stuff up. All right, yeah, that's what I thought.
That he lost the 2020 election. And that lies about it. I have no idea what's in Jake Tapper.
Instead of debating, they do personal attacks? Yes, exactly.
We gotta go. Thank you very much. Okay.
We'll be right back. Okay, yep, there we go. And here we go.
All the projects, the benefits. How do you lead the world without having the best infrastructure in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best healthcare in the world? How do you lead the world?
What's his hand? Is the new lizard that's wearing this bodysuit, did it not fit him? They've got to get a new lizard that wears this bodysuit, man. This one didn't fit.
Without having the best education system. How do you lead the world when you don't have that done?
Jesus Christ.
Lead the world without having the best education system.
Oh God.
The projects.
Oh Jesus, man. And yeah, the FN too. I don't know, but yeah, it's just a crazy world. Let's see here. And that's when you changed the robot. Yeah, exactly.
You are your husband's fiercest advocate and a close advisor. And it's been reported that you created a sort of cocoon around him and kind of limited his interactions with the media and others. Do you think you could have been too close to the situation to objectively gauge whether he could handle a full 4 more years?
I was with Joe day and night. I saw him more than any other person.
Oh, look, I mean, we had Eleanor Roosevelt running the country before. I think, was it Wilson? I forgot which one it was. His wife ran the country. Like, this has happened before. It's not like it's unheard of that this happened. So it's not a big deal, but just come out and just like, I mean, can we just fucking admit it?
And I woke up with him. I went to bed at night with him. So I saw him all throughout the day, and I did not create a cocoon around him. I mean, you saw him in the Oval Office. You saw him making speeches. He wasn't hiding somewhere. I didn't have him, you know, sequestered in some place. I mean, that's
Wish she had.
ridiculous.
Was that hurtful to you when they were describing you?
Old Joe is doing another one of my favorite tricks. Tell him the truth and have him laugh it off. Just say it. Yep.
In some place. I mean, that's
Wish she had.
Yeah, there it is.
Was that hurtful to you when they were describing you as Lady Macbeth and all of
Yes,
those?
it was very hurtful. It was very hurtful, especially
That
from
woke
some
him up?
of our
Yeah.
so-called friends.
Yeah.
Surely.
He had to recharge after. Oh, God. Oh, fuck. I really hate the fact that Trump goes with Crooked Joe because Sleepy Joe was so much better. It was so much better, bro. Like, yeah. And connection down. That was 10 seconds later.
He wasn't hiding somewhere. I didn't have him, you know, sequestered in some place. I mean, that's
Wish she had.
All right.
Was that hurtful to you when they were describing you as Lady Macbeth?
Yes,
And
it was
here we
very
go.
It was very hurtful, especially from some of our so-called friends.
All right, well, disabled. Bro, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of a Furby. Remember those back in the 90s and the 2000s where it's like these like weird little stuffed animals and they would just go out and say one thing and then they would just go back down to doing nothing? Yeah, on low power mode? Yeah, basically, right?
The Director General of Air Ops, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I got 3 words for you. Facebook. Most of you are probably familiar with Facebook, formerly the world's largest social media networking website, and currently the leading cause of brain rot in boomers and Gen X, second only maybe to Fox News. It was once a bastion of communication where people could follow their friends and keep up with who's breaking up with who, has turned into a cesspool of bots and AI slop. Today I invite all of you to put on a hazmat suit and leave your critical thinking skills at the door, because we're going to be taking a painful walk through the absolute horror show that is Facebook conspiracy AI slop. I feel like this framing is a little weird. Is this framing weird? Oh wait, I don't care. All right, you might be wondering where we're gonna start this descent into madness. And it is with no joy in my heart that I will tell you that we're actually gonna be starting with me. It's been brought to my attention a few times that I apparently have a Facebook account. Now this is completely news to me, as I do not have a Facebook account, but there is a Mini Minuteman account on Facebook that happens to post all of the same things that I do. Now typically I don't actually have a problem with people reposting some of my content. I think that the message is good to get out there, and I think it can also be a little bit of free publicity. But this one's a little bit different. You see, at face value, this is an account that literally just reposts everything I have ever made pretty much multiple times a day. At the time of me recording this, it's reposting a video that I made back when I was in college. Oh my God. You know, guys, if you ever look back on yourself and think, cringe, I think that's actually a good thing, because it means you've changed a little bit. Wow, my hair was great. I'll be the first to admit it. But the primary thing that really irked me about this account is not only is it impersonating me, but it's this account's Facebook story that really just ties it together.
My friends laughed at me when I said I'd get rich quickly using an ancient vibration technique. But a few months later, they were shocked when they saw everything I had achieved.
This motherfucker has the audacity to ride the coattails of my stellar reputation and then talk about vibrational frequencies. What did he say? What was that? An ancient vibration technique. Get rich quick using an ancient vibration technique. Believe me when I tell you there's only one ancient vibration trick that I know, and only very few people can say they've experienced it. I would not share it on Facebook. This is one of the inspirations that I had to start working on this video, because every post on this account is pretty much just ripping everything that I've made, but then the story is doing something like completely different. Like, it isn't even just taking the things I post on my story elsewhere, it's like AI voiceover crypto scams and shit.
Saw everything I had achieved. Hi, my name is John, and a year ago, I was financially broke. I had no money for anything, and with each passing day, I felt more and more buried in debt. Then I stumbled upon a video that revealed the secret vibration technique that billionaires use to get rich.
The secret vibration technique that billionaires use to get rich. I don't even know how to unpack that. Believe me, if I had the secret vibration trick that billionaires use to get rich, I wouldn't be making fucking YouTube videos. I'd be out there vibrating. I'd be handing out wads of cash to children. I'd be teaching the children how to vibrate. Pause. YouTuber moment.
It allowed me to attract a life of abundance quickly. Thanks to this video, I now live in a luxurious house, take amazing trips with my family.
We're going back a second. Luxurious house? I'm gonna be totally fucking honest. That house looks like dog shit. Your house looks like it's made out of whiteboards. The furniture looks like those little cubes you put in a wax melter. Whatever course this con artist is selling should be the immediate dead giveaway that it's not me. But if that didn't give it away, what really should is I would never post a video of a house that looks like that and say something good about it. Do you need to look at my ceiling? You need to look at my ceiling. This is what my ceiling looks like. Okay, big boy YouTube bucks here. My ceiling looks like this. Look, there's a hole in my wall over there. You know about that? No, you don't. You want to know what's above my green wall? Yeah, it looks like that. Holy sh! I put a fucking hole in the ceiling. So if you really think that I would say a house that looks like that is, oh, it's so beautiful, full of shit.
Let this mineral melt in your mouth to rebuild your gums and teeth and never need a dentist again.
Yet again, I've had more than a few minerals melt in my mouth, but I'm not putting it on Facebook.
People are fixing their receding gums, decaying teeth, gingivitis, and tooth infections, all by letting this special mineral melt in their mouth every morning.
Stop saying it. Why do you have to say it like that? Bro, no one's trying to let you melt their mineral in your mineral in their mouth every morning. Who up trying to let me melt my mineral in their mouth every morning?
Dr. Drew Sutton has just discovered this powerful mineral that can
Would Dr. Drew Sutton let me melt my mineral in his mouth every morning? I don't think so.
Grow your teeth and gums. How is this possible? This mineral can...
How is this possible? Seriously, how is this possible? Okay, what else do we have?
Coffee might be the reason your gums are bleeding. It's not the caffeine, the sugar, or even the cream.
I literally cannot hear this voice without thinking about
Peener snipper guy.
It's not the sugar, the coffee, or the cream.
It's the Peener snipper guy. The real issue is something far more surprising.
Oh, Jesus, that's fucking grotesque. I don't even think we can show that. That's grisly.
We tested a homeless woman's wealth secret on a skeptical mom. This homeless woman went from living on the streets to winning the lottery 6 times and buying her dream home. When Jim Carrey made this gesture live, the audience was stunned.
This homeless woman went from being failed by society who doesn't take care of anyone to winning the lottery and then being someone that we all can look and clap about.
What seemed like just an innocent joke actually hid something much deeper, something most people completely missed. But if you look closely, you'll...
Wait, Did I like miss a part, or did it literally just go from the homeless woman wealth secret to Jim Carrey Illuminati conspiracy?
Joke actually hid something much deeper, something most people completely missed. But if you look closely, you'll see there was a hidden message behind every move, and it goes far beyond what anyone could imagine. What Jim Carrey showed live has a meaning that can free you from...
Okay, chill the fuck out, bro. It's not that serious. What Jim Carrey said, it has a meaning that can free you. It can liberate your mind. You guys aren't going to believe the meaning. The meaning in the thing he said is immense. It has a deep meaning to it.
System. Imagine this. While most people continue living under the system's control, there's a hidden truth that major figures have never revealed.
I believe that it's deeper than that. I believe we're a field of energy dancing for itself. There is no me.
There's no you.
Okay. You guys kind of get what I'm illustrating. You're picking up what I'm putting down, you know? So my issue with this is twofold. One, obviously very not cool to just rip all of my stuff and impersonate me. But two, using it as an opportunity to then post literally the antithesis of what all of my content is about on the story. It sounds like the person who's running this account could actually bear to maybe watch one or two of my videos, because I talk about exactly why everything that they're saying is complete bullshit. This account, by the way, has 66,000 followers. I'm sure they're actually making like legit money off of this. They even reposted, I think, one of my episodes of the Ancient Apocalypse series, like all fucking like 50 minutes on here, but it is following one other account. And now, I can't say whether or not this account is the person that's running the one that's impersonating me, but if it is, I know this guy. Not like actually, but he's this dude with this crazy mustache who always films his videos like this. I talked about him a very long time ago. And no, again, I don't know if this is, maybe this is an account impersonating him, and it just happens to be the only account that my impersonation account follows on Facebook. But if this is an account actually run by him, it opens the possibility that this is the guy that has been just ripping all of my content and decided to only follow himself. Again, I have no way of proving this, but if so, that's actually hilarious. What a way to get back at me for fact-checking one of your videos. Now, hilariously, this account, which pretty much only reposts my shorts, has reposted a few images. One of them is my banner. One of them is my old profile picture. They haven't got the memo that I've changed my profile picture since. And they also posted these two images that my partner took of me on Martha's Vineyard that I posted on Facebook or on Instagram, and they just reposted those too, which I think is really nice. I thought they were great pictures. That's very kind of them. Oh, and then they also posted this, which is Facebook recognized me as a consistent Reels creator of the week. I think I'm the one creating those Reels, actually. So guys, give me a big round of applause for all the Reels I've created. I know, I've worked very hard for it. Okay, before we move on to the much more egregious AI slop accounts, there's one more thing I want to read from this one. And that is, I didn't know this until this account, but Facebook accounts can have reviews. And there's one here that is just so ruthless, I have to read it. This is from who doesn't recommend Mini Minuteman. Says, literally just a thieving hack, stealing content made by Milo, who actually worked hard to develop knowledge and skill. Whoever made this fake account has no worthy knowledge or skill. They're utterly incapable of creating anything of value, so they steal from others. It's sad, really. Imagine being so worthless and talentless that you have to resort to stealing a creator's name and content. You couldn't pay me to be that pathetic. Jesus. I know that the Mini Minuteman you're not recommending is a different guy. It's not me, but like I almost feel a little like, I'm a little nervous from that. I made my hair stand up a little. Give him hell out there. So I'm not going to spend any more time on this account because it's just a hack, essentially. But I have had a lot of people reach out to me and say, Milo, is this you? And all of the comments on these videos are people being like, is this really you? I don't think this is really you. And so people have caught on, but that hasn't stopped this guy from grifting off my stuff. So I will humbly ask all of you to please go and report this account. This is not me. This is impersonating me and stealing my content. I will leave a link to this account in the description, and if it's gone by the time you're watching this video, nice job. That means we got it down. I will also say, from this moment going forward, I do not have a Facebook account. I do not plan to make a Facebook account, and any Facebook account operating under my name is not me. You have my authority to report them as they are impersonating me. If for whatever fucking reason I'm ever inspired to make a Facebook account, I will make abundantly clear that it is me and not somebody else. You know, I'll do like a proof of life image. I'll say the words, no, someone could just AI me. Who the fuck am I kidding? My name is Milo and this is my Facebook account. I am being held hostage by the peanut snipper guy. Okay, with that bullshit out of the way, let's look at some of the really bad accounts. Actually, I don't know, should I say the names of these? Probably I shouldn't say the names of these. But we have nice AI-generated pyramid image as not only the banner art, but also the thumbnail image. The thing that I think is probably the best about this banner art, those of you who are in the natural science science sphere will already be noticing a problem with this one, and that is that for some reason in front of what is presumably one of the Great Pyramids is a saguaro cactus. What the fuck that is doing in Egypt, I could not tell you. Who would have thought that AI is actually really stupid? Okay, that's interesting. You know, if it weren't for the fact that there was giants moving alongside it, I'd say that that's, other than being AI, is actually not bad. They're actually showing it on wooden rollers. They're not like, you know, saying that it was done using like lasers or like, you know, resonance harmonics or some shit like that. What's the one comment on this? Giants definitely built the pyramids. This is the only explanation every religious book confirms. This, the Nephilim, for example. What's this? It's the Nephilim, for example. How'd the rock go to the big? Well, it's the Nephilim, just for example. I feel like an English major would just have a delightful time with that sentence. There's a lot of I don't even think I have the energy to delve into a subtext of that one. Wow, I gotta say, this account has found one thing and does it very well. It's like big, glistening, beefy men moving rocks. Oh my god. Oh, that's the proportions here are just something that leaves a little bit to be desired. Glistening and burly though he is, his legs seem to have problems. I also like that there's a oxen that appears to be, it's just like half ox, half wagon, and it's just the ass end of an ox with wheels in the front. That's Egyptian high technology that they don't want you to know about. What are these? What the fuck is that? Jesus, every time I watch one of these videos, I feel like I'm like tripping balls. Like, your brain just can't make sense of the way, where's that arm coming from? Where's his arm going? Certified AI bullshit, good. Does this page have reviews? I've seen some of these in my dreams. You know, they make medication for that. Well, we are thinking how it happened. Well, we are thinking how it happened. It's a Lamborghini. Every time I go on Facebook, I feel like I'm suffering neurological damage. Okay, that's enough of that one. Let's try another one. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why did my man grow an anchor? What the fuck was that? Whoa. Wow, that's incredible. I don't know what to make of this. I feel like I've seen a lot of AI pyramid videos recently of like, you know, giants lifting rocks up over their head and stuff. And it seems disproportionately focused on Egypt. Like both of these two accounts are just Egypt. This one has 1 million views. Paramedic in Egypt construction with AI image. Paramedic? Paramedic. Do you see what I mean about neurological damage? Like, am I going insane or does this just not make any sense? Is that a paper machete rock? Well, there's a lot of people commenting on how the weight of the rock doesn't seem right. Lightweight rock rises before touched. Not impressive when the stone is made of styrofoam. Is that a paper machete rock? And I can't tell if that's people realize, I assume they know this is AI, but they're like responding to it as if it's an actual thing happening and saying it's not that impressive because it looks really light. Very strange. Oh look, it's another paramedic in Egypt construction. Oh, it's just so weird. A lot of people will ask me, Milo, what's a conspiracy that you do believe in? And I am a firm believer in the dead internet theory. I don't think that there is a single way in hell that Facebook is actually like primarily populated by actual people. I think at this point, it's like AI spam accounts and like respond bots just like slowly creating their own culture. This account looks good. We got a picture of some pillars up there at the top. The profile picture is a picture of Nemrut. I've been there. There's me in front of that their head. Ah, and there we go. Incredible unveiling. Enormous mermaid skeleton discovered, embracing her offspring in a poignant embrace. That is poignant, I gotta say. What's the bottom one? What the hell is that about? I don't know why I'm trying to make sense of this. Unbelievable. Ancient extraterrestrial images. Aliens surface in historical records. You're right, that is quite literally, by definition, unbelievable. I remember when AI images first started to become a thing and I started to see like conspiracy theorists use them. And I remember thinking to myself, uh-oh. And now it's like really come full circle. I don't even think we've fully seen the effect that it's going to have on destroying the minds of the good people of this planet. But just the sheer quantity of AI images that you can make and how convincing it's getting is going to absolutely destroy our brains. This job is one that I don't feel worried that AI is going to replace, but I do still feel like AI could eventually put me out of business. Not because it's going to replace me, but because AI images are going to just become so common that every single conspiracy theory is just going to be hinged on them. And all I'm going to have to do is become like an image forensics to prove that the evidence that they're showing in an image is false. Notice how this account is called archaeology and has an actual like archaeology site as a thumbnail. Do you think this account started out being like, I'm going to post actual real stuff, and then over time they like, you know, soured and this is what they ended up doing? Or do you think they set out and they were like, man, fuck it, I don't know, here's a picture of a poignant embrace between this skeleton mermaid and her baby skeleton mermaid. Oh, there's a normal mermaid. Whoa, can you show that on YouTube? I don't know if you can show that on YouTube. Seems fishy. See, and then these accounts now are kind of flip-flopping between the AI-generated bullshit and the just normal fabricated bullshit. Like this alien mummy thing that came out, I think it was like a year or two ago from Mexico, that was just like the remains of like some llamas that were like, you know, like put together with like plaster of Paris or something. That was crazy. I can't believe that got like unveiled on like, you know, like the floor of like a fucking courthouse or something like that, or like a government center. What bullshit. All right. What you got for us? Wow. See, this account has a picture of a huge burly dude that doesn't even look like it was AI. Actually, no, it's definitely AI. I'm kidding. Oh, God. I feel like the placement of like the red arrows and circles has even reached like the absurdity event horizon. Like, what the fuck? Why do you need arrows and circles on this? I am trying my best to process exactly what I'm looking at here. I know where to look. I don't need any guidance on this one. This is disturbing enough as it is without the sense of urgency. Feet. He's got 2 sets of feet, and they're the smaller second set is coming out of his ass, and there's no knees on them. Now, I will say, for every bot account that's responding to these things, there are actual people who are trying their best to weed out the bullshit. Like this guy. I joined thinking this was a legit page. Time to leave. Good on you, Michael. But did it take you this long? This is your breaking point? Pretty much every single comment on this post, at least, is people being like, this is AI-generated bullshit. I thought this was a reputable account. Then, of course, you get the one saying, in the book of Genesis, giant. But that's, of course, you're going to get one of those mixed in with the people that are thinking. An international team of archaeologists has made an astonishing discovery in a desert region of Egypt. Ooh, where is the desert region of Egypt? It must be pretty close to, like, the rainforest, or to the alpine meadow, or the tundra, perhaps. Ancient texts refer to a part of Egypt that's desert. The discovery, unprecedented in the history of archaeology, could rewrite what we know about ancient civilizations and their understanding of the human. The discovery took place while researchers were excavating a complex of forgotten tombs deep in the Egyptian desert. According to the team leader, Dr. Ahmed Al-Hassan, is that a real guy? Are they just like taking some guy's name? Oh no, they totally did just like Ahmed Hassan. There he is. Okay, so it is a real guy. I don't know why I'm looking into this so much. I'm just curious whose name they're stealing for this bullshit. Okay, they quote him falsely. These colossal figures are incredibly well preserved, and preliminary dating suggests they are more than 5 millennia old, said Dr. Hassan. I don't think Dr. Hassan ever said that. One hypothesis suggests that these giants, that doesn't seem like an appropriate place for quotes either. I would say that if those were found, they would be giants. They are giant, after all. Could be related to ancient myths about beings of enormous size that inhabited the earth. Oh, you mean like giants? Actually, it talks about in the Nephilim, for instance, or whatever that person said. The Nephilim, for example. That would explain how they built the pyramids. Girl, I think if this was a real discovery, there'd be a lot more questions opened than answers given. If you're looking at this and your first thought is, well, that clears that up, I am concerned about you. The Nephilim can be found in Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:33. Those are both numbers, yeah. Numbers 13:33. Is that a real thing? Like I was never raised in a Numbers. Numbers. Book of Numbers? That's crazy. I thought that was called the Yellow Pages. Okay, well, that's enough proof for me. It says it in the Book of Numbers. Is this real? I can't. Why does it look like Captain America? Am I going insane? What is going on here? Oh, no, Milo. Why don't you just count how many fingers are on that glove? Yeah, of course that's AI. Jesus Christ. You see what I mean, people? Do you see what I mean? Even me, who does this for a living, I look at that and I'm like, wait, that actually kind of looks legit. And then I count the fingers and I'm like, wow, I'm stupid. Yeah, and why would the rope still be there? That rope would have decomposed a very, very long time ago. I also think there's something interesting in how AI conspiracies are really easy to do for archaeological stuff, not only because of the public's general lack of understanding in it, but also because so much of it is so like crunchy and gnarly and dirty looking anyway, that a lot of the imperfections that AI creates can sort of be glossed over in your mind. Something I heard a while ago that I thought was interesting is when Toy Story came out, the reason that they chose the characters to be toys, or at least one of the benefits that the animation team had, is that they're toys. So they're smooth, they have like kind of a plasticky look to them, and so you can animate a toy and have it be convincing to your brain a lot more than animating a person. Where a person, we know so much of like how they operate and how they look, and we're so tuned in on like little inconsistencies and differences that we'd be able to pick up on it better. So, but a toy is like, okay, it's a plastic thing, you make it look like whatever, and it moves like a toy moves. We don't have a frame of reference. So, you know, when you see AI generated, you know, pictures of people out there, there's a lot of other great YouTubers that have done excellent videos. I think, you know, fucking Drew Gooden and Danny Gonzalez have both done great videos about AI stuff. And, you know, it's like, you know, beautiful, heartwarming photo of two brothers playing with their dog, and it's like, you know, this amorphous little blob and like a basketball with feet, and it's just like your brain immediately knows like that's not right. But when you're looking at AI, you know, archaeology stuff, it's so kind of crunchy looking anyway that we don't really have a frame of reference, and it kind of lets a lot of the inconsistencies slide, which makes people fall for it. A startling archaeological find has left academics dumbfounded in Japan, where a team of archaeologists uncovered the bones of what looks to be a giant samurai. This find, uncovered during a recent dig, throws into question what we previously believed about ancient civilizations and their interactions with samurai fighters. They're like a different species. We believe there may still be small pockets of samurai fighters lost in the mountains. DNA recovered from a samurai fighter has actually been grafted onto the DNA of what would be the closest living relative of a samurai? A pangolin. Researchers have successfully managed to sequence the genome of the ancient samurai and has implanted it into the embryo of a pangolin, getting us one step closer to hearing the mighty and ferocious roar of the samurai for the first time in 10,000 years. Okay, there's a lot of people calling it out for being AI and fake, but this one might be the best. Fake news. They dug a hole, threw that thing in, and took a picture. I really respect the gusto, you know? Like, you're so almost there. Oh. Whoa, that threw me. I've talked about this one. I know this one.
For anyone wondering, this is unquestionably a crinoid
I've talked
fossil.
about you before. I know your tricks. Excellent. I was kind of curious here, so I just kind of typed into the Facebook search bar, archaeological mystery. You know, there's so many excellent and amazing archaeological mysteries out there, things that fascinate and mystify archaeologists and the public alike. The centaur bone revealed, discovered in Greece, 1876, from ancient footprints. Right away, I mean, we're facing a problem with this image that you'll be able to identify almost immediately, and that is the fact that you can clearly see in the fossil here, it has horns, and in the reconstruction, there are no horns. It also appears in this glass case, which is definitely the same excavation, it has no horns. And this leads us to question, what the fuck happened to the horns? They are hiding the horns from us, and we want to see the horns. No, this guy's trying to put in a really good explanation without invoking AI. Not too uncommon for a human and animal to be buried together, either by accident, necessity, or purpose. That's true, but that's also not what's happening here. I really, again, your heart is in the right place, and I love that about you. Here's one. This one isn't AI, but it is Göbekli Tepe, which is just a fertile breeding ground for the pests of the pseudo-archaeology world.
Another shitty account says
The mystery of Göbekli Tepe, humanity's first temple, intrigues researchers. Archaeologists still don't know how to solve the riddle of a place that dates Earth's great civilizations by thousands of years. What's the riddle? There's no riddle. It's just a piece of archaeological data. That's a data point. It makes us go, oh, so it's old now. There you go. We have evidence, and now the evidence is there. This really is not. Jesus Christ. Göbekli Tepe is a challenge for archaeologists, as it completely rejects the idea that only sedentary communities erected monumental buildings. That, as well as many other sites around the world. It also is not a challenge for archaeologists. Perhaps the biggest challenge for archaeologists was actually excavating this site and giving you all of the information that you now use to slander archaeologists with. It is amazing just the phrasing that people will use for archaeology conspiracies. Archaeologists are stumped. They just don't understand. They can't accept. I'm like, bitch, an archaeologist gave you all of this information. Do you think that it was some brave alt historians that went out there and did the painstaking excavations at Göbekli Tepe? No, that was published by fucking experts. You sitting there in your basement rattling out tweets about how, you know, Göbekli Tepe is a big cover-up is not like, you're not winning a crusade here. I don't know why I'm doing this with this chair. It's a corner chair, so it goes in a corner. And because of that, there's one leg that's conveniently placed almost directly under my ass, and so I can go around like this. It's fun, although I'm worried I will fall over. Anyway, I'm gonna stop doing that because now I'm freaking myself out. Oh yeah. Sensational archaeological discovery in Antarctica. The T-Rex extinction mystery unveiled. I like that the bottom left image just looks like it's like a 480p screenshot of Walking with Dinosaurs. Wait, there's a link. What's this link say? Sensational archaeological discovery in Antarctica, the T-Rex extinction mystery unveiled. In a groundbreaking discovery, scientists exploring the remote icy expanses of Antarctica have uncovered what is being dubbed the T-Rex extinction mystery. Hidden beneath ancient layers of ice, researchers stumbled upon a stunning collection of remarkably preserved Tyrannosaurus Rex skeletons. Oh, whoa, I didn't notice the softcore porn at the bottom of the screen here. Jesus. Pointing to a sudden and catastrophic event that wiped them out in this unexpected region. There's so much wrong with that, I don't even know where to begin. What is this? News 156 Media? Bringing the world to your screen. Oh wow, this looks good. Scientists have finally located Malaysia Flight 370. Their discovery will leave you stunned. Close defense. UFO firing energy beams towards Earth revealed. Witnesses amazed. Tesla stock plunges, erasing $460 billion at Musk's political gambit. Woo! Get that dude! I don't know what that's all about. What's this? Oh, good God. What the fuck? Wow. Looks like fun. Why wasn't I invited? This looks cool. It has been widely documented across several continents in history books about interactions and interbreeding between races from Earth and beyond. No big deal, as that was a long while back, so it's behind us, guys, all right? Look, she was a long time ago. I don't think about her anymore. The big question is, who's doing all these dirty deeds to Earth and humans right now? I think we're doing a pretty good job, okay? Dirty deeds is like our big thing. It's been dirty deeds since we crawled out of the primordial soup, brother. It's a dirty deed world. Okay, I think I have to call it there. I don't think I can look at this anymore. I feel like I'm going insane. So the thing about the whole like AI conspiracy thing is obviously there's a side of, you know, artists and that whole side of things, which again, other YouTubers have covered in a much more eloquent way than I am here. I'm focusing on this from the misinformation way, and I think that AI is going to be the single most powerful tool in the bullshitter's toolbox. I have talked about this already in multiple videos before, where conspiracy theorists have used AI-generated images to back up their claims, and now faked images is something that, you know, conspiracy theorists have had to use pretty much forever, because they're talking about things that are, you know, fake. But at least previously you had to, like, put in some effort to fake the images, you know? Like, there was a time when, like, a good, hard-working conspiracy theorist had to know how to do double exposures to make a ghost appear. That's cool, okay? There's technology involved there. But now conspiracy theorists can just, like, flood the market with as many faked images as they want to back up literally anything they want. And again, due to just the public's general lack of science literacy, if there's just enough of this bullshit out there, I think it'll actually make, like, a pretty sizable negative impact. Like, even if most people have the critical thinking skills to be able to filter out, like, the most egregious of it, AI is just gonna keep getting better, and there's just gonna keep being more and more of it. And you can see that these accounts and people that peddle this have absolutely no integrity whatsoever. I mean, like, they're literally just making up quotes by people that didn't say anything. They're giving no indication that it's not real. And because of that, they're just not even playing, like, on the same playing field as everyone else. So what most people have had to deal with of having to actually, like, substantiate their arguments and, like, have sources that things are coming from. An account on the internet doesn't need to do any of that. They can just say whatever they want and push a ton of it out there, and even if, like, most of it falls on deaf ears, some of it's gonna get through. And I think, honestly, the best response for all of this AI bullshit is to do exactly what we did in this video. And that is not give it more breath than it deserves and point and laugh, because it is stupid. I'd like to thank you all very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I would greatly appreciate if you could leave an interaction on the video. Likes, comments, and subscriptions are like tipping the bellhop. They are your free way of helping us game the algorithm that's dominated by Mr. Beast, and it allows me to continue making videos like this for free, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Along with that, you can also share this video with a friend. If you are anything like me, you probably are playing this video in the background while you fold your laundry or do your dishes or something. Yeah, I know, I'm watching you. And I bet that you also have a lot of friends that do the exact same thing. So why don't you share this one with them so they can fold their laundry to it as well? And if you're not done doing the dishes yet, why don't you check out one of my other videos? I have ones that are just as stupid as this one, and ones that are like actually well thought out and I'm proud of. And once again, I ask you to, you know that account that we were talking about? Go fucking report that guy. Impersonating me, you have the fucking nerve. You come to me into my fucking green studio with the roof falling in and try to talk to me about having a billionaire fucking vibration to my fucking audience. I will not fucking stand for it. I'd like to thank my patrons over on Patreon for making what I do here possible. Patrons get early ad-free access to all of my videos, and all of your names will be in the credits of this video as a small token of my appreciation. If you'd like to become a patron, link to that is in the description of this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching. Remember to stay curious, stay inquisitive, and most importantly, the Nephilim, for example. Oh, my battery's gonna die. Really? I'm doing my outro, damn it. Wow, that was really stupid. I am currently, probably as you're watching this, I am traveling. I'm actually at the Society for American Archaeology Conference, which is cool. That's a very, very cool thing. And so because of that, I am trying to get ahead on a bunch of videos. So that's what I am doing here. But you know, you gotta do a stupid video every once in a while. You know, I can't forget my roots. My roots are was stupid things on TikTok, and now I've grown into a guy that does actual real videos that I'm really proud of. But every once in a while, you need to just look at some stupid things on Facebook. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's actually sunny outside today for the first time in about 8 or 9 months. And so I'm gonna go outside. Peace.